Coming up on this episode of Belief Hole.
I'm going to use the word demonic to describe what these people are dealing with. I don't think these things were ever human. When you start talking to people and they've got sewer gas smell in a room and they're getting scratched or they're getting bit, some of this stuff was never, ever, ever a human being.
I left my body, but I had been bad place. I remember I was watching marathons of Law & Order Special Victims Unit and drinking taco sauce from the bottle. It was just an unhealthy period of my life. And so definitely shining out some lights into the demonic realms. Hey, here's the guy who needs some...
Easy prey.
Easy prey.
But, we had many experiences in this house. I mean, we live on an Indian burial ground, so...
That is weird. That's a weird coincidence.
Well, I don't know if that's true, but it's possible.
It probably just, possessed that nasty piece of steak, so it came through his gases and then just permeated into the room.
That's how they got into our dimension, was through Dad's gas.
Yeah, it was definitely, it was pretty terrifying.
It makes it seem like it totally could have been some other entity that was there to feed off of your fear, especially considering only people that worked there were people with dark backgrounds, criminals, felons, ex-cons, maybe murderers, people that were escaping the norms of reality and trying to hide away. Mm-hmm. Wouldn't that be a place that would be a beacon for these strange entities to come in and feed off that stuff? They are here, all around us, all the time.
Nanny.
Possessed Fozzie Bear?
We're going to get to the bottom of this life thing eventually. One day we're just going to disappear because we figured it out.
What's at the bottom of the belief hole? All the answers?
Everything's going to connect in perfect order and all the weird paranormal and conspiracy theories.
Just like a Cenobite puzzle box.
And as stupid as it sounds as somebody who doesn't believe in this, every time we get a phone call, and we've helped people in Australia, Indiana, Idaho, you name it, the first thing you got to tell the people is if you walk into a room and the shadow person's there or it's swinging the curtains, whatever, don't run, don't scream. They get fear, they're not going anywhere.
Conspiracy,
synchronicity, Sasquatch,
Donald Trump,
alien races, Satanism in Hollywood, MK Ultra,
Pleiadians,
Mandela effect.
Close the door, Ed.
Jeremy, close your door.
Snowflakes,
Inner Earth, disagreements,
My Lab,
JFK assassination,
Flat Earth,
Corey Feld, magicians are demons, specters and spooks, sleep paralysis, Muslim Islamicist, the gender spectrum, alternative history, shadow people,
Quiet, I'm trying to say words with the mouth.
psilocybin, sorcery, poltergeist, sulforaphane, evolution, is it real?
Skull and Bone. I would never talk about it. That's old. Y2K.
Cover-ups, the Oklahoma City bombing, vampire.
Are you troubled by strange noises in the middle of the night?
You experience feelings of dread in your basement or attic?
You or any of your family ever seen a spook, specter, or ghost?
Welcome to Fright Night.
Well, hello.
Well, hello.
Spooky. Welcome to our definitively creepy episode today.
So far.
Episode 7, Shadow People, generally scary experiences, just a good old time of spooktacularness,
It's
right?
the next level of ghosts.
Yeah.
You may have heard of ghosts. Well, this is the next level of ghosts.
Fedoras and all.
It's so much more scarier.
What's up?
Fedoras.
What's shaking, my brothers?
What's going on? You guys doing well?
Yeah.
I'm
Sleep?
doing...
Did you guys sleep well?
When?
I mean, I don't know, last night?
all the nights since the last episode?
Yeah, we got to be more specific.
How have you been?
I've been asleep the whole time. So I don't know.
You went into hibernation after the last one?
We just shut Chris down.
Yeah, what's been going on in the world?
Oh, man. Who knows
Slime.
anymore?
Slime and slurs.
I feel like I've been having a phone problem lately.
Oh, yeah? This sounds like a warm-up for a joke.
No, I just feel like I
Plantain
can't put it down lately.
Oh,
It's been
yeah.
annoying, I've been annoyingly stuck to it.
Yeah.
Yeah, like
And
it's draining
I
you.
just can't stop, and then I'll catch myself and like, dude, you just need to.
It's hard to
you just
not.
got to wait.
It's hard to
Got
not.
to wait.
Yeah.
I know. I need a break.
It's the time we live in. You imagine being people today, like younger generations who've just been raised with a phone, with
No.
some sort of device. Like I can't imagine. I'm not
Yeah.
like making any judgments, but
Oh, there was a...
I don't judge them. I just feel bad because they have never
not
known
them.
anything
Yeah,
else.
I mean, like the society today. Like imagine, like do you
Yeah.
remember? Like I work with people before who've never used a payphone. never
how awful.
never used a map, or never heard of a pager. Which I mean, that's just that's just time progressing. Right. I don't know. I didn't know what a
Chrono spinning his wheel.
I didn't know what a vitriola is. That a word? What's that?
Yeah, the music
I
player?
think I'm using two words incorrectly, but the
Victrola.
Yeah. Anyway, old record player. Like, there's so much technology that's coming. I don't even know anymore. But yeah, it's strange to live in this time where you can. Happens so fast now that you can see the progression and change in technology right in front of your eyes.
And it's separating our souls from our bodies.
That could be argued.
Yeah, I know. It's definitely, you got to be careful. You got to be, but the thing about the young people is they don't have that
the
separation.
Yeah,
they don't. I mean, at least we grew up in a time where we know what it feels like to be separated.
To have the downtime to be able to think.
Yeah, so when we get too far, at least we know how to break away.
Always
I feel like.
consume. It's so easy just to always be consuming content. So on that note, make sure you tune into next week's episode. Download it as soon as possible.
Yes.
Go to our website. Get our
trying
mobile
to throw you
app.
off from. Please keep listening.
Well, we obviously need the technology for what. We
Right.
wanna do.
I mean, technology is a beautiful, beautiful thing.
It's a
you just
double-edged
have to
sword.
learn how to
It's like anything.
use it properly.
There was a guy. But it's like someone opened a door to the demons.
Sorry.
The demons want to get out. They want us to move on to that topic. We'll get to
true.
this to the shadow.
I just
folks.
wanted to say on that point, it was kind of interesting that a top head honcho, it's for a couple different major tech companies in
was this?
Silicon Valley. I forget his name, Hiroshigo Yagamati Zarandalu. I think it might have been
racist.
it.
Zerondaloo. Definitely, that was real.
I can't remember his name. I swear I just heard this on another podcast, and that's why it's in my head. But basically, it was this guy that came out saying, like, he headed up some projects at Facebook and maybe AOL or some other places. But he was saying how, like, he doesn't let his friend, or he won't let his kids use this shit.
Oh yeah.
Speaking, and those
I'm
were his
sure
words.
it's on both sides.
Wasn't he?
I mean, Steve Jobs didn't supposedly let his kids have iPads and iPhones.
Mark Zuckerberg covers up his camera on his computer.
Yeah, pictures of that.
Well, it's tricky because, like, as a parent, I'm not a parent, but as speaking as, I would imagine as a parent, like, you can't, it's tricky because you don't want to overexpose your kids to constant media and constant technology. But let me finish. But at the same time, of course, you.
And that's it for Chris's time.
That's good though. I like that. But let me finish my thought anyway. I'm going to break the rules here,
Okay.
mediator. I just wanted to say at the same time, of course, like, you don't want your kid to fall behind in understanding of how current technology is used.
Correct.
And
So
tablets and
I don't even know.
But this guy, for that point,
crunches are great.
He was saying, he was talking specifically about how he has a wider concern about how it's destroying society and how not just like he won't let his kids use it, but he thinks that if you look at how people communicate now and how our society is built, we're destroying those skills, the skills to build our society in a positive way.
Totally.
But it's just because interesting that he's like one of the top guys involved.
Well, he's got to
he's also partly, they understand how the technology works as far as wrapping people in and making these feedback loops and hook loops that keep people just stuck to the screen.
There's little rewards.
Yeah, little ding sounds.
Anyways,
and little upticks in serotonin.
Yeah.
Ooh, I come back. You gotta like. Someone likes you. Not in real life, but
they liked your post and your fake persona.
Sophia Smallstorm. She was talking about it on the Higher Side chats.
Is she Native American?
Smallstorm? Oh, that's a good question. That's a cool name. Smallstorm.
Unless you named yourself Smallstorm, and then it's not cool.
Well, it's still kind of humble though. It's not Big Storm.
It's still like storms are still powerful though. So even if it's a small storm, you're way more powerful than any other human ever.
It's like Jonathan Littlegold.
Little gold?
Little gold. Like, it's still gold. You might just have a little bit of it, but
it's just, small gold.
Well, yeah, that kind of, we were talking about that attention and that energy being sucked in. It's interesting because that can kind of go to some of what we're talking about later.
Absolutely.
The shadow people, which is interesting because I didn't go too much into the research in this specific avenue of shadow people, but shadow people researchers believe that there is a huge connection between shadow people and electromagnetic energy and those sort of charges that current technology gives off, sort of like an attraction, kind of like a moth to a flame.
Bullshit.
Possibly.
yeah.
That's good. That's good drop,
Shadow
John.
people
Thank you.
researchers.
Sounds
like a very niche group.
Well, there's a good chunk of people in the paranormal community who've become who've
specifically
written,
shadow people.
Well received books on shadow people. Yeah, they spend their lives dedicated to just that topic.
Oh, that's interesting.
Because shadow people, it seems like in pop culture, it seems like a kind of a new internet kind of meme. It's interesting because it goes back millennia. The idea of shadow people and in different cultures around the world. And I think just recently it's become sort of this like creepypasta thing. So immediately...
Creepypasta?
Have you heard of creepypasta?
No.
All right, I'm going to enlighten you.
That shows you how
he is the
old
last
John
millennial.
is. Just a little laugh. Guess I am.
Creepypasta is like, it's kind of this new phenomenon where people basically write fictional stories online on blogs about like
4chan and stuff.
Often like internet-inspired
urban
legends and monsters. So creepypasta is kind of the modern spin on telling stories around a campfire.
It's like the digital.
It's like modern. Are You Afraid of the Dark?
Yeah. Good example.
It's kind of like, remember when you were a kid and you'd tell ghost stories on the bus to like other kids on the bus? These creepypastas are like being on the bus.
For example,
in the digital online world.
Right. So for example, you've heard of the Slender Man, right? Mm-hmm. That came from a creepypasta somebody wrote. Or no, actually came from a creepypasta sort of photo competition.
Like a contest.
So the guy made up a whole background behind this character and then photoshopped this character into these old photographs, and it became this phenomenon, which eventually led to someone murdering someone because they believed it's so real.
But
that's creepy. That's kind of that's an example of creepypasta.
Okay.
Just created
But I
online.
also heard that the Slender Man actually, whether he knew it or not, is actually there's a similar character.
Well, he ties in very
real
much to shadow
folklore.
people in like actual folklore.
Yeah.
Which is kind of interesting. But yeah, but that's kind of the frustrating thing I feel like covering a lot of these topics now is I feel like in one way it's great that the paranormal and supernatural conspiracy in general, there's more of an interest and focus on it. In one way, that's a great thing. In another way, it almost makes it feel superficial.
Down.
So yeah, it's so saturated in our culture these days where it's kind of that idea where like, they make science fiction movies of aliens because even though the stuff's going on, they do that.
It's all like a story now. None of it really.
So you don't believe the actual real stuff. Right. So that's kind of what's frustrating.
That's part of the reason it's happening.
Yeah. Like I remember growing up.
If you're a demon, how would you think?
Right. I remember growing up and we would.
What is the greatest lie the devil ever told?
No, the greatest trick the devil ever pulled off was convincing the world that he didn't exist.
Yes.
Yeah, that was from Devil's Advocate. Good movie.
That is a good
It's from a lot of stuff, actually, I think.
Yeah, I think that was the original.
I think Al Pacino wrote that line.
Yeah.
It was an off the cuff.
Was that the movie?
No.
Al Pacino is.
Wasn't 8mm? No, that's when you dance with the devil.
Right. I don't think either of those are correct movies.
The devil changes you or something.
Yeah.
Dungadin.
Because I think it was a girl who said that. Or a younger boy. Anyway, what I was saying was,
or a younger boy.
Absolutely dare you, sir.
Damn it.
How absolutely
You'll find a better spot for that. Well, Jeremy knows what I'm talking about when I get to this part.
Oh, yes, I will.
Speaking of the saturation, like
a shadow knows.
Speaking of the lack of saturation back in the day when...
Sounds like a personal problem.
Sorry, Chris, would you like to get your thought out?
I'm done.
Time's up.
Oh, yeah, this is Sober 7.
Oh, yeah.
The episode
Sober
of our
7.
show.
We don't have to announce that. That makes it sound like we have a problem.
Well, we did.
Until this
That's
episode.
why we stopped.
There were some... it did get a little messy towards the end of a lot of our episodes. A lot of editing time.
It's getting harder to follow your talking points for me.
Or to stay awake.
Not because I was stumbling, but because you were a little too inebriated.
Well, and you're boring.
I don't agree with that.
I'm on the fence.
I have a fly that keeps attacking me.
I hate that.
Welcome to summer.
Wait, a fly's in here?
Welcome to summer.
There's a fly in here?
August.
I think it's more than that. I think it's because we're going to be talking about some dark subjects.
Yeah, I do think
we know that flies are attracted to darkness. There's proof right there.
I think someone's calling.
Hello?
Hello?
Oh, I'm sorry. Are you on this line?
Ooh.
All right, let's save some. Here.
I have plenty.
So this episode, if you haven't noticed already, is focused on shadow people and all that might entail, where they might come from, how they interact with more people than you actually probably would imagine.
Right.
They experience this kind of phenomenon.
What is a shadow person according to eyewitness testimony? People who experience these things regularly. What is a shadow person according to global phenomena in historical accounts? Like what people's.
Where did they come from?
Yeah.
Where did they go?
Why are they
come
here?
from and where are they going?
Cotton Eye Joe.
Anyway, what I was trying to say, and I was just going to finish that thought. Yeah, was the saturation of the paranormal and how it seemed to kind of water down the entire topic of whatever it is, whether it's like cryptozoological sightings of like Bigfoot,
right? There's just a lot of junk out there.
Yeah, UFOs. Like there's so much reality TV too around, and for good and bad, I think, and. It's good to get a focus on it, but at the same time, it does seem the oversaturation. Well, I'm getting to.
Why am I drippings with goo?
Yes, there's a good example of in cinema. That was from Ghostbusters. People didn't get that.
If you don't get that, then you should stop listening.
Am I dripping?
Well, there might be a lot of younger folk out there. They just watched the new Ghostbusters. It's so good.
Facetious.
If you haven't seen the second Ghostbusters, go see it.
The second one is good.
They ruined
the remake.
that movie.
The remake?
It's great.
Oh, really?
I think the remake was way better.
No, he's joking. He's talking about the...
Why'd you say Ghostbusters 2?
I meant the remake.
Yeah, what a fan. You didn't even know there was an original second.
That remake was saddening.
Yeah.
On so many levels.
There's no way I could even try
You know,
to watch
I
it.
gave it a shot because I heard the criticisms and then I heard the people's reasoning for the criticism, saying like, oh, it's people just not wanting women to play the roles. And then I went and watched it. And I watched it. I tried, because I love all those actresses on there. They're hilarious. So I was like, it's going to be good, or there's got to have some redeeming quality to it. And I am a fan, so like I do set kind of a high bar. But even going in just to watch it, I remember I got through maybe 10 minutes of it, and it wasn't their acting, and it was just the story setup, the music behind the scenes where there shouldn't have been music. It was music throughout, because I think they were trying to cover for the fact that it wasn't directed well. It just wasn't written well. Like I think it could have been great. It has nothing to do.
I was angry. I was angry when I left that movie. Yeah. And the worst part about it, I was with like 6 other people, and all those people loved it. And they stayed through the whole credits, and I got out and like crawled underneath the seats because I could not be in there for one more second, because I just couldn't believe how bad it was.
Right.
And they all loved it because they're like super feminists and
right. Well, and to me that's not an issue. Like to me, like
it is for me a little bit.
Is that why you didn't like it? Because they were women?
No.
Well, that's what I'm saying.
I didn't like it partly because there was an obvious
there was
agenda,
like a motive,
but it was just a bad movie.
Right. Well, that was my point, because like I went in not thinking of an agenda. I just went in thinking like, this is going to be Ghostbusters. There's got to be something good about it, because Ghostbusters are great. And then, I just couldn't get through it. But then that's what frustrated me, was when I heard people's responses to people critiquing that film. And they're like, well, if you don't like it, it's because you're,
misogynist.
You're a misogynist, and you don't want women to be successful.
Like,
I was like, I love all those actors. They're great.
I love women. I love and support women, but I am not a feminist. I don't like the movement.
Well, and it's a few people, women happen to be the main characters in this film, but it doesn't mean that if you don't like the movie, you don't like, that's like saying like, oh, you don't like tomatoes? Well, you must not support farmers.
Right.
You must not support farmers.
What? The one does not necessarily.
Anyway, if you genuinely like the film and you're listening, good for you. I'm glad you enjoyed it.
What, Ghostbusters 2?
Why do you keep saying 2?
I don't know.
You're a terrible fan of Ghostbusters. You keep calling
remake.
Ghostbusters 2.
It's hard to say the Ghostbusters remake. It's so much more long-winded.
Just call it...
How absolutely dare you, sir?
How dare you? That works there.
I'm sorry. The Ghostbusters remake.
No, I'm joking. Like, if you like the movie, that's obviously, that was my own take on it.
And maybe if you're younger, you might enjoy it. If you never saw the originals and it's a completely unique concept, you can overlook some of the...
It's so far away from how good the first ones were.
If you've never seen a good movie... maybe you wouldn't know any better.
There are some things in this world that go way beyond human understanding. Things that cannot be explained. Things that most people don't want to know about. That is where we come in.
That is where we come in.
That worked out really well, and that was Bill Murray when he was on the testimony stand, right? Mm-hmm. Ghostbusters?
Testimony stand. Is that
I don't know. The witness box.
We have Defendant, please come to the testimony stand.
Come to the talkie box.
The talkie box. We will now hear your words.
I love how when I'm talking sometimes, especially on the microphone, I know the word that I want to say in my head, but it comes out so infantile when I then go to say
talkie box.
I went up to the walk area of the street.
The walk area. It had black,
the walk area
yellow
with
stripes.
Pavement that is lining it.
Like I can hear myself doing it. I can hear you do it too, Chris. Sometimes we're trying to explain something, and you're like,
your brain. You got to readjust your brain.
Suddenly you're aware that you're trying to get out a point, and then it makes the point so much harder.
Right. You got to mold it like a clay, like I'm doing right now.
Yeah.
What's it called in a pottery room with a cup and a water
and kiln
clay. That was a good example.
So let's. You want to start getting into the.
Yeah, I was just what I was trying to get to.
We kind of started to get. This is how we roll, though.
That's how we roll.
We start to get in,
it's
and
an
then
ebb
we
and
jump
flow.
out.
And to move on that point, just because you played that clip from Ghostbusters, the original.
Well, was that from the sequel or the first one?
I think it was the first one.
Was it the first one?
I think so too. Or was it the slime? Was that the first one?
No, the slime.
That was the second one with Vigo.
That's definitely the second one.
Okay.
Why am I drippings
Why am I drippings with goo?
Vigo. Okay, so
that wasn't Vigo.
No, that was Vigo's
his little sidekick.
His little lappy.
Yeah. Anyways, is Goon. What I like is the thing with the new Ghostbusters. I didn't even watch it, but what I have a feeling of, especially from the trailer, is that the original maintained this sense of like kind of edgy darkness, some somber seriousness, emotionality to the movie that I feel like did the second one have any of that? Like from
the third one?
I'm sorry, the remake.
You really started confusing me.
It's embarrassing.
Man, okay, so did the remake... Well, I think... Okay, so the remake, did that have any of that kind of like darker kind of
New
York grit?
It didn't have any of that.
Not that I
both the first and second one had like a layer of like kind of
creepiness.
It was creepy is a good way to put it. It wasn't scary,
right?
But it just had this overtone that was like gritty New York, sort of like. And they did such a good. And then they had the comedy that was just perfect.
Oh yeah,
and the timing and the writing as far as the line. I mean, it was just there's just so many memorable, amazing parts in that movie.
Right.
And even the ghosts themselves were creepy and fun and
even the fun ones were still kind of creepy. Where in this it was total
Gozer?
Disney. Yeah, in the new one it was total Disney, like CG. Not scary, creepy at all. Like, you know, I mean, I think in the originals they did walk a line because I know like if you remember the end of Fright Night, we kind of had played that sound effect too. But at the ending scene where, not to spoil it, but somebody turns into this giant monster bat thing that like
somebody.
I don't want to spoil it.
Might be the bad guy.
It might be the vampire.
I'm going to tell you what happens, but I'm not going to tell you who it is.
There's more than one vampire in there. Anyway, but he's like this thing is this giant rat.
Absolutely dare you, sir.
It's this giant rat bat thing that's melting, okay, and it's on fire.
Bat. Okay.
They were going to use that in Ghostbusters, but the producers thought it was too frightening because they were trying to stay under a certain age range. But even their fun, creepy ghosts were still way creepier than the ones that I saw in the newer one.
Yeah.
You know, it was just like, and maybe it was aimed at more for children, but I don't know. If you're going to take a franchise like Ghostbusters, it's a high bar to go up against. And all of those actors in that, all those female actors in there are definitely up to the task. So I don't blame them at all, you know?
I'm glad that you have their
backs.
They're hilarious. They're good actors. Yeah, no, I love them and everything. You don't have to get snidey about it.
No, it's just the way how you reiterated that is just kind of funny. It's like you want...
Well, it's an important point. I don't think it was...
I remain friends with them. Chris. No, I agree.
No, fuck you. Remain friends with them.
Whoa!
Bullshit.
Sorry, man.
My point is...
I didn't mean to touch a nerve there.
My point is it's not about... Like, that's the criticism. Like, you don't like it because you don't like those women actors. That's not why I didn't like it. Right. And that's why I think that...
We just want to make sure that Chris likes the women actors.
You're missing my point.
That's why
you're missing my point completely.
I get it. That's why you're reiterating it.
Yeah, not because I like it, but...
Chris, we know you're a feminist.
You're making it about the actors. It's not about the actors.
No, I know what you're saying.
I didn't think they did I mean, I don't know. The script was bad, but like I didn't like any of them either. Like they just weren't memorable to me.
Yeah,
I'm not saying they're bad actors.
I'm just saying going off of the other stuff that that I like.
Yeah,
that's what made the movie bad was the direction and the writing.
Right. Yeah, I mean,
because I know they've done good jobs in other
polish
things.
A turd, basically.
Right. Petrified turd you can polish.
You never even had a slinky?
We had part of a slinky, but I straightened it.
Rest in peace.
Is that Egon?
Egon. He died.
Gigabyte.
Last year?
Egon
Spengler.
Harold Ramis, right? That was
He directed that, didn't he?
He may have.
I think he directed Ghostbusters.
Yeah. Anyway.
I did have a slinky. Part of a slinky. But I straightened it.
So great. It really defines his character.
Yeah,
that statement.
It's funny, and this is the last thing I was going to say about that saturation thing. I remember when we were growing up, you know, if you were interested in like UFOs and ghosts and things, it was this kind of like dorky thing to be interested in.
Right.
Like I remember we took it as like fighting against the man because they would have a fiction section and a nonfiction section in elementary school, and everything that was written as like references to like anything supernatural was always put in the fiction, even if it was written as nonfiction.
Well, even if it was like for instance, we had one was called the Encyclopedia of Ghosts. It was just accounts that people had with photographs. Like that's where I first learned about the brown lady.
Right, and they were always in the fiction category. So Jeremy and I would every time we went to the library would move the books and put them into the other side. I wonder what the librarian thought. Like, why are these books always moving to the nonfiction?
They probably thought they were ghosts.
Yeah. Technically, they were nonfiction.
But now I think it's kind of cool in a lot of areas, which I think is good. That's a good thing. There's no stigma of being interested in this stuff anymore.
No.
But at the same time, there's the other side of the coin where it's that oversaturation.
Well, it's like the Illuminati. You know, it's not a thing anymore because it's just a Jay-Z
now it's just
t-shirt.
Taco Bell commercials.
Yeah, I heard about that.
Have you seen that? It's so weird. Yeah, I don't know if they're still on, but it was this whole like cool thing where it was like this futuristic society, and it was like be part of the Illuminati or something.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
It's their like
Taco Bell.
Yeah, they're just using it as like a meme kind of thing.
Yeah,
right?
basically. Yeah, it was like the secret club that you would get into and
right.
You know, get a taco.
Yeah. And you know, get a taco.
I'd join for that.
What a weird like.
Yeah, what a weird thing
for a mix.
Anyways. So
they're here.
They are here all around us all the time.
Is it Fozzie Bear?
Nanny.
Possessed Fozzie Bear.
Waka waka waka.
That's awesome. I want to possess Fozzie Bear. That's gonna be one of our. That's gonna be a Belief Hole T-shirt. It's gonna be like a zombie Fozzie Bear.
Yeah, that's great.
Like demonic Fozzie Bear.
I like it.
That reminds me of what was that? Those bears. That game you could play on the iPad. The Friday Night.
That's
at
a
Freddy's.
whole episode.
That's a whole
Friday
episode.
Night at Freddy's. Yeah, let's not even get into that right now.
Friday at Freddy's.
I want to hear more about the shadow people. We've got the kinds of stories too about this stuff.
Yeah, it's cool. We had a write-in, which is great, and
What
an
does that mean,
email.
a write-in? Oh, we got an email.
Yeah, and then we have an interview coming up.
An
That's
interview?
gonna be great. Yeah.
Interview for the show.
Interview for the show. It's going to be pretty great. Our first interview.
Someone else is going to be in the Belief Hole.
Yes, John.
There's enough room in the
Actually,
Belief
he
Hole?
has his own podcast. That's really good.
We're just extending the Belief Hole.
Digging out a little corner.
He's diving
of
into the
hole.
Belief Hole. He's an adventurous man to be diving into the Belief Hole with us. But yeah, I heard his story actually on a show called.
I didn't like that one.
On a show called Jim Harold's Campfire, and his shadow person encounter was one of the most compelling ones I've ever heard. So I was like, man, if we can get him on the show, it would be great to kind of just color the episode and give a little more detail. Plus, he's had a lot of encounters. He's in a group called Phantom Faction. They have their own podcast, and they're involved in a lot of investigations where they've witnessed a lot of crazy stuff. So I thought it'd be a good interview.
Awesome.
We'll do that later coming down the road here. This episode.
So stay tuned.
So stay tuned.
Stay tuned after the break.
That clip you played here just kind of reminded me of.
Remind me of that Poltergeist movie.
It is Poltergeist.
Yes,
that was
Jeremy.
why it reminded me of that.
You're hilarious.
Waka waka.
Did you really?
No, that was a joke. That was a bad joke.
Yeah.
Well, I wouldn't be surprised since you don't.
It wasn't really a
there's
joke.
Ghostbusters
I was just
sequel.
trying to be like wry and contrarian.
That doesn't make any
Nope,
sense.
I just want to use those words.
How absolutely dare you, sir?
That one was good. That worked.
From now on, I decided when I can't think of a word, I'm just going to substitute it with something else that just sounds like it flows right. I feel like we do that a lot.
Like garden or shore
or like
spatula.
No, something might sound
Tennis
more
ball.
Gubernatorial.
Yeah, like I'll be like, that's completely non-pedantic. But these words that always pop in my head, they're like, that's a good word. I don't remember what it means, but you want to use it kind of in
Crepuscular?
dialogue.
It's so pedactory.
So pedactory.
Is that a word?
I don't think so.
It's so hydraulic.
So non-hydrogenic.
It's so hydrogen.
Inglorionated.
Wow, this podcast is
It's all Jeremy. It's all Jeremy is the king of wandering thought.
Sorry.
Time's up, Jeremy.
Back on.
Save your energy for
That's
Jeremy.
like the Pavlovian dog. You
Save
ring
your-
that bell, I'm just like, right to
You're
your
like
attention.
Al Roker when they.
Leave some room for the Holy Ghost.
That is still one of the most bizarre things I've
What are you
ever
talking
seen.
about?
Google Al Roker MK Ultra video.
So strange.
What is it?
I mean, how do you explain that?
So it's basically Al Roker. It's Matt Lauer,
he's on live TV.
the former Matt Lauer, and the other lady that's on there, and they go to give a hug, and Matt Lauer, oddly enough, says, "Oh, we leave some room for the Holy Ghost," and then right at that moment, Al Roker like just eyes blinking
his
to the
head
camera,
kind of
and
cocks to the side, and he just gives this like
absent
just
zombie
absent
stare
zombie
for
stare.
a protracted amount of time.
It's like 20 seconds.
It's not nearly as long as that basketball player. Have you seen that one?
Wait, I think
And
I did see
Shaq
that
does
with
one.
Al Roker. Was he looking at the camera?
Yeah,
Yeah.
they're
He's
all
just, like,
three.
zoned out looking at the
it's like
camera.
there's three people in front of the camera,
Yeah.
so he's not talking. But like when they say Holy Ghost, his head cocks to
Yeah.
the side, and he just looks like Bill Clinton in that one
Oh, when
interview
they're doing
where.
the makeup on.
So
Yeah,
are we
he
saying
just-
that was like maybe potentially like an MK
MK
Ultra
Ultra.
trigger? Like it was a
Well,
trigger
I don't
word?
know what it was.
They-
but
I mean, they say
I don't
that-
know how you even explain what happened.
It's like hypnosis, right? Like with the fracturing of the mind with MK Ultra, they say that there is like a
trigger
word
word,
that can
like
trigger
Monarch or something.
Yeah, it's for that kind of programming where like the Manchurian Candidate, he gets a phone call and then here's a code word or a set of words, and then that is the trigger. And which is funny enough, when you program certain
like in
Bicentennial Man
Zoolander.
or Bicentennial Man.
Oh, Robin Williams. Rest in
Bicentennial
peace.
Man, in order to activate, there's like 10 words they have to read off in a particular order, and that activates
Oh,
like the
that's
consciousness
right.
of the robot.
That's right, yeah.
But that's the same kind of thing with MK Ultra.
Don't you remember Zoolander?
Yeah, that whole movie was about
but
MK
I don't.
Ultra.
Yeah, I know,
it
that's
is
so weird, yeah.
Oh my gosh,
Derelict.
Yeah, he's like
derelict.
I forget what
what's
the
his
trigger
name?
word.
Ben
Stiller.
Stiller.
Yeah.
He like is that model, and then at
Right.
the end he's like at that dinner, and they say the word.
Well, I forget what the word was that triggered him.
I don't remember.
Something ridiculous, of
Yeah,
course.
like Blue Steel or something.
Oh, how's this look?
That was a great movie, though.
That was a great movie.
Do you remember the part where they're pumping gas?
Yes, it's, of course where my mind went. Yeah. You guys go out and watch Zoolander.
I heard the sequel is terrible.
Maybe we can get some
Why? 'Cause Neil
ad revenue
deGrasse
money
Tyson
from
was in it.
just mentioning movies. This is all we do.
We'll get sponsorship from like Blockbuster, some other company going out of
It's dying.
business. What is the bell happening for?
I think it's to move along the topic. Actually, that could be good for moving along the topic.
It's good for that. It's good for shutting people down. Right. It's also good for...
I love that you have the control of it.
I know.
It's good for shutting you down.
You know, there's one person that's cooking a Hot Pocket right now, and they're like, what? Sorry?
File's done.
Yeah, they're like... I should put like little phone rings in here too.
I would confuse people?
Yeah, like sometimes I listen to podcasts that have like the people calling.
Yeah.
And I'm always like, what's going on? Where's my phone?
Is my phone doing that?
Or shadow people.
Shadow people.
The reason why the poltergeist...
Wait. Shadow people. Now we're back.
Shadow people. Nanny.
Okay. When you play that poltergeist clip, God damn it. We can't...
This is bad. I'm
sorry. Why as well be drinking?
We need a poll and ask people. Do we see?
No, well, it's you two. I keep trying to get back to the topic, and you two are like, let's say whatever comes into my mind right now, because it sounds funny on the microphone.
We need to pull out that ask. Do we sound too like distractible?
Yes, everybody says
that's our biggest downfall.
Well, I think it's a plus and a negative because people enjoy the babbling brook feel of it, but at the same time, there is that. We get to something and then we talk over one another and then we don't get to the point.
Because you can't dive too deep unless the babbling brook is dammed into a reservoir of knowledge.
See how you just went back into something I just said while I was trying to get to a point? That's the complaint.
Well, I was painting a picture of what you're saying.
I had finished that and moved on.
Well, like 2 seconds.
But you're talking about some... Yeah,
okay. Chris, go.
Shadow people, you played that clip from Poltergeist. Yes, Jeremy, from Poltergeist, not Ghostbusters 9 or whatever you're confusing things with.
Ghostbusters 2.
Yeah, okay. That just made me think of, We're Here, that clip. It made me imagine that...
They're Here.
They're Here, sorry, yeah, They're Here, that makes more sense. It made me imagine that scene from Are You Afraid of the Dark where there's all these... they put on these glasses from this magic shop or whatever, and then all of a sudden see all these strange beings, all black, standing around him within his world. Mm-hmm. And it's this impression that in another dimension...
Just
outside of ours are these other beings that exist and are aware of us, and that's kind of I think the shadow people concept in a lot of ways.
That's fascinating you say that because that episode I do remember that episode where they had goggles on that could.
That was one of the most frightening episodes.
They were glasses, right? They got it. From
Pardue shop.
Pardo. No, Mister. Accent on the dough.
Okay,
Mr. Pardo shop.
I don't even know what's going on right now.
Anyways, the shadow people. In that episode where he puts on these special magical glasses and he can see all of these dark figures around him, right? A little bit of truth in the media here. What's fascinating about that is there was a study, supposedly, I've been trying to find this because I heard this on a podcast like a couple of years ago, but it was a scientist, it was an ocular scientist just wanted to study peripheral vision.
Oh yeah, that's right. Well, before we go there, let's go to break real quick. Sorry. I want to play a cut up from a short doc that the guys over at True Horror Stories of Texas did. Check out their YouTube page, and we'll put it in the show notes and kind of share some experiences with shadow people. Pretty creepy stuff. And when we get back from the break, I'll kind of do more of a breakdown of shadow people in general. So sit back, curl up, and listen to this creepy clip. We'll be back in a sec.
It was a nightmare.
It was a black mass.
Glowing eyes.
I heard a growling noise.
Long, tall being of some sort.
I've been inside your home.
Shadows from the corner of my eyes.
What do you mean you've been inside my home?
And when I looked over the side of the bed, I saw the shadow coming in from the window. It went underneath the bed. After that, I saw it run out to the bottom of the door, and it just, when we went to the room, to the living room and the next room, it got bigger and it went out the front door, through the door.
The shadow got closer to me, and he kind of towered over me, and I could hear weird breathing, and it could get to a point where it feels scary and almost demonic.
One thing we know is that we don't know.
I'm just glad I'm not alone.
And we're back.
We're back with shadow people in the room with us right now.
Not.
Probably.
I think they're everywhere.
Wouldn't know, would we? I mean,
what is a shadow person, Chris?
You can never really know.
That was a good one from the last episode. I like that. Well, Shabbat, I mean, there are different theories. If you look in,
Why don't you give us a little background of what shadow people are, where they come from?
What do they look like? How do people experience
Well, that's what I was saying
them?
when there's different theories of what they are, where they come from.
How is if you experience a shadow person, what would happen? What would it look like to you? How does it most commonly?
Okay, yeah. So according to like witnesses, and I've had my own experience. I didn't know that there was a term for this when I was younger. I didn't know that there was this phenomenon known as shadow people, but generally people have these experiences. The most typical one is you wake in the middle of the night, you can't move, you're paralyzed, and in the corner of the room, usually in a doorway, is a masculine type shape of a human, all black, often blacker than black, almost like a hole in the universe, just punched through this figure, this outline. And there's this overwhelming feeling of terror and malice and ill intent that feels like pure evil. It's the most terrifying feeling you could ever imagine feeling. It's beyond imagining, but this is a phenomenon that's going on for a long time and only recently has become this sort of pop culture sort of meme, I guess.
Right.
But that's your typical experience. It doesn't always include sleep paralysis, and that's one of the arguments against the idea of shadow people. We'll get into that in a little bit, but so yeah, it's typically this dark figure that's in the corner of the room when you wake from sleep and you're frozen. But other experiences include shadow figures that have a little bit of feature, like red glowing eyes is a typical one. And that's usually agreed upon in like spiritualist circles that is like definitely pure evil. There's some that just seem to be moving throughout homes or throughout places, and they seem to be seem to have their own destination and purpose, completely oblivious to you. Like you're not any concern to them. Those are kind of the main shadow people. But one of the interesting ones, I think that the only one that has sort of a detail that's unique is the Hat Man, which is a common phenomenon in this shadow person experience. And it's a shadow person that's wearing usually a fedora type hat.
Like Freddie.
Is interesting. Reminds you of Freddie Krueger because it's, late at night. This evil entity comes near sleep with a fedora on. Interesting.
Yeah, although you're not supposed to be sleeping, right? The shadow. People.
Right.
You're supposed to be conscious.
Or in that kind of
twilight
area.
Or
in the twilight stage. And a lot of people have these experiences, like the guy John is going to be on our podcast later. His experience was, during the daytime, renovating a home.
Yeah.
So it's not always this close to sleep situation. It's very common.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, that's kind of the rundown of description of a shadow person experience.
You had personal experience, didn't you?
Yeah, I was in high school. It was late one night, and I woke up, and it was your kind of typical experience where you have the sleep paralysis, which I've experienced a couple times in my life, and but I was completely awake. But in the corner of the room was this dark figure, and it was the most terrifying feeling I've ever felt in my entire life. Complete evil. I've never felt that way before, and I've never felt that way since. And I couldn't go. I didn't sleep in my room for months after that because it was so terrifying. Even when I go up there today, because, our mom, that's her room today, hasn't had these experiences, but even when I'm up there today, I still get an unsettling feeling, whether that's like the trauma from that situation or whether there is still some residual energy. If that was, in fact, felt completely real to me.
Did you ever feel guilty letting mom move into your evil demon room?
Well, she's protected.
Did you warn her?
That room does have some, I lived in that room
Yeah, you
before.
stayed. You had that before I did, right?
John had faces.
Older brother John.
I had similar sleep paralysis experiences there where it was just just paralyzed. And I don't remember seeing a shadow figure, but I definitely, there were some pretty weird experiences in that room. Our whole house it's weird because that does feel gone now, doesn't it?
Yeah, for the most part. Yeah, I don't feel any sort of creepy vibe, which is interesting because it was a newer
puberty.
Home.
You guys are going through puberty.
Should I tell the story about the basement?
Yeah, that's a creepy story.
The refrigerator.
When I was home alone.
That's right. I forget everyone went away for Christmas and left you there.
Yeah.
No, this was
camp.
Well, not when you were home alone.
No, this was like high school. I was probably 18 maybe, and I like to stay home because I could have parties. And you guys would go to church camp. And
you won that. You ran out of that deal.
And one of the nights I remember I was trying to get people to come over and no one wanted to come over. And I was sleeping in the basement at that point. And I remember waking up in the middle of the night to the sound of, there's a freezer in the middle of the basement, and it would just it just opened and then it shut. And this thing was old, right? To get it open, wasn't it the old one?
It was a heavy door.
Yeah.
Big top door.
Actually, it's a little blurry at this point because it happened so long ago, but it was definitely the refrigerator door opening and closing.
It's repetitive,
and not just,
right?
Yeah, it happened a few times.
Yeah.
And I was so scared that I didn't even know what to do. It was so surreal because I was, we have a house in the middle of the woods. I'm in the basement. I'm completely alone, and like
something's opening.
This is like as paranormal as it gets, as far as I'm in the moment, and just the feeling of complete terror, like just frozen in fear,
knowing that something is over on the other side of this basement that you are
exactly,
in.
Yeah.
And
you just don't want to even move.
Be there.
You don't even want to move because you're like.
Because what do you picture? You picture the door opening, but you probably pictured something opening and closing it, right? Like.
Well, obviously.
Yeah.
I mean, I did. Yeah. I mean, I assumed it was like ghostly because I really didn't think there was someone over there. But to me, it was just like this has to be some sort of a paranormal.
Yeah.
Right. Specter or spook. But
specter or spook.
But like we had many experiences in this house.
Growing up.
We live on an Indian burial ground, so
that is weird. That's a weird coincidence.
Well, I don't know if that's true.
It is interesting though. We do live on
a.
We
did find a grave.
And it was an old swamp. Like everybody used our property as a dump back in like the 1800s canal era. Like they would just throw things. So you wanted to get rid of something, you threw it there.
I think the Canal Mafia used to throw bodies out.
It's possible.
In the swamp.
Yeah, I mean, I had that cup fly at me up in the room above the garage where you're living now. I had that cup fly across the room and smash against the television when I was home alone. That was the most vivid paranormal experience that I couldn't explain away.
Poltergeist.
Yeah, exactly. And I was at that age where you hear about like, was it the child who's in preteen, full of hormones, like, somehow there's pent up energy that
psychokinetic.
Make you have a hallucination.
No, it wasn't a hallucination because there was Diet Pepsi dripping down the screen over
over
the Golden Girl's face.
Sounds like a hallucination to me.
But that was the most vivid experience I had where I couldn't explain away. I think with my shadow person experience, a lot of the arguments against the sleep paralysis situation is, well, we know that there's a chemical that's released that keeps you still. So when you're dreaming and you're in REM sleep, you can't act out your dreams. So what's supposed to happen is that that chemical is supposed to abate before you wake up from your dream. But in some people, sometimes you can wake up and be frozen. And it's because of the chemical that's been released. And then they link that to auditory and visual hallucinations. But the interesting thing about that is I always wondered, like, okay, but is it possible there's something that's in that room and is using our own biology against us to paralyze us, to terrify us even more? Because there's no explanation for the hallucination part of it.
Don't lions do that with the roar? Something subsonic frequency?
Yeah, they can freeze up.
Make your bowels.
Right. So is it the chicken before...
That's just primeval terror.
Yeah.
Like something, there's no go. It's just like, I'm going to die now.
Yeah. So is it like the chicken before the egg? Is it in fact that you wake up prematurely and your body's frozen because of what's been released inside of you? Or is it something that's there that wants to use your biology against you and keep you frozen so it can terrify you?
Very sexual.
Something that's been released inside of me.
Wow. Yeah. Anyway, that's kind of the argument.
Drippings with goo.
That's timely.
That's kind of one of the arguments against the sleep. But the problem with that theory, scientifically, is that there's so many shadow person experiences that occur in wakeful moments of life where there's no sleeping going on, where there's no,
There's video footage of shadow people. That's pretty
so
compelling.
much very compelling video footage of shadow people, in homes where strange activity is going on. And that's when you get down to the question, like, what are they, right?
What's the difference between a
ghost and a shadow person?
There are no ghosts, only demons.
No, that's not true.
How do you know?
I don't, but that's an argument you might make if you were very bent in one direction. Yes, you can say that.
There's no friendly ghosts. I feel like there.
If you're talking about
not friendly,
the idea of ghosts being like a lot of what we think about, like poltergeist activity, actually being like demonic. And when I say demonic, I mean anything that you want to ascribe to something slightly otherworldly outside of our dimension.
You don't necessarily mean fallen angels,
archons, fallen angels, demons. They can all be.
What about just disembodied souls?
Well, that's the
Lost
question.
Spirits.
Because the argument against that, the idea of it being like a lost soul still wandering,
or someone that hasn't gone on to the next
right.
phase.
I think that's definitely possible. But there's another argument that a lot of times, like especially through Ouija boards and things like this, people be convinced that they're speaking to the lost loved ones or something, when really it's an entity that's trying
manipulating
to trick them.
Haven't there been a lot of cases I've heard of people where they're not evil, they're just kind of mischievous?
Yeah, well, that's the thing with demons and angels, like the jinn weren't always malevolent. Some would just be playful.
Well, that doesn't seem very jinn-like.
It is.
Or demon-like. They're just like, just move this rock over here.
Well, that's because it's like anything. I mean, the idea that not all of these entities are pure evil. Some are just...
Isn't that the definition of a demon,
No,
though?
not depending on your religious structure.
It's semantics, for sure.
They used to be, if you go back to the Hermetic texts, like in very early Christianity, like the Gnostics before they were Christian, they started to take on a more specifically malevolent role as those religions shaped Islam and Christianity. But if you go back further,
they were getting into semantics a little bit.
But it's good. It's important to know where they come from. Like originally, they were just chaotic entities that were part of the godhead, or part of the substructure of the demigod, the demiurge of this world, who was, if you're talking about archons and that, the demiurge is basically like, you could make a parallel with like Lucifer of this world. It controls this world or created this world, but above that is the transcendent God. So in the Christian religion, it would be, God, God Almighty, but the demiurge and his minions.
And some of the minions are just like little frolickers. They're just little trolls that run around and don't.
They may not feel like eating you. They may just be,
just like they want to flick your ear and run away.
Just want to get you fired from your job.
Yeah, exactly. Like just manipulate.
Well, I mean, it's interesting because you're talking about the archons and like that whole concept. Yeah, I think one of the most popular concepts regarding shadow people is the idea that they're entities that exist in a different dimension. So not necessarily dead humans, not spirits that are lost, disembodied human spirits or souls, but that they actually exist in another realm and they just happen to feed on our fear, our vices, what we would call evil. That's their energy to them.
That's why they terrorize you in those night paralysis.
Well, that's when they seem to show up. And this is actually, I want to talk about this for a minute. I don't know if you guys remember this, but I have a vivid memory of living on Stonewood, our childhood home. And I remember one day, how the house looked. It was so intense that this just has stayed with me. But the amber glow of like the early 1990s light fixtures, everything's kind of yellow and orange. The old TV's on in the background, and we start arguing, intense arguing, everyone in the family. And it's one of these arguments that just build and spiral and gets more intense. And I started to feel this intensity, this intense, sinister feeling. And I've had the extreme sensation that there were beings, dark entities that were coming to the window like moths to a flame from feeding off of our energy, feeding off from our argument, so much so that I started screaming that we needed to stop. Stop, we need to stop arguing, they're coming. Because I had this, like I just knew it as a fact, like things were coming. Like maybe like 5 years old. And I get goosebumps just thinking about
you're
it. Like
more connected, I feel like, when you're little to these other dimensional spaces.
Absolutely, I think
you
that's
have like
true.
a more direct connection. You haven't been as through the the stigma of the world and what's possible and what isn't possible.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not a clairvoyant at all. I think it was an experience I had because I was a child.
Or closer to whatever you want to call it.
It's goosebumps just thinking about that.
But it's creepy, because it definitely seems like, from all the research we've ever done, it seems like there is these beings, whatever you want to call them, that do need to feed off of dark energy. They need to feed off of fear and lower level vibrations. It's like a food source. We've talked about this before on other shows.
Yeah, we have.
But, it's interesting. I mean, that's a really interesting story and creepy.
It's creepy, yeah. I mean, and that idea, that it's weird how like there are so many parallels of these. If they're ancient entities like the archons, right? Like David Icke talks about.
What is an archon exactly? Do you have a breakdown of that?
Is it like an archetypal demon or something?
No, it's an actual entity, the archon. So
it's one entity. Or is multiple?
It's a type, right?
I really want to get into this.
Let's see what the
next episode,
what the definition is. I'm just curious.
Yeah, you can check Wikipedia if you look under archons.
So
but essentially,
this is something you want to do on another episode.
Yeah, I really want to get into. Actually, I want to get into the cult of Saturn, because the more I look into all this stuff, the more I realize that everything is Saturn. Everything goes back to that. Even like Satanism. There's a strong link that it is actually Saturnism, that the elites...
The worship of the planet Saturn?
Yeah, the god Saturn. Yeah, which is...
But does it have to do with the planet too?
It does have to do with the planet Saturn too. It's the Lord of the Rings, they call it.
So that's...
they call it Lord of the Rings? That's pretty cool.
That's why we, supposedly, if you go into this research, that's why we use a wedding ring. That's why saints are shown with halos. Rings, all representative of the Saturn worship.
That's creepy.
And it connects to...
Interesting. That sounds
like
a
cube, which I wanted to get into in the next episode. Is interesting.
Black cube?
Yeah.
What's that?
Black cube is a very important symbol in both Islam and Judaism. If you look at Mecca, the Kaaba is the black structure.
You're talking about the Kabbalah?
No, but Kaaba and Allah combined makes Kabbalah.
Yeah.
But
that's a religion in itself, right?
It's Jewish or Hebrew mysticism. That's the black cube in Mecca, that all the Muslims, when they make their pilgrimages, go to circle around. Certain groups of Jews. This is why I want to get into this in the next episode because it's really interesting. But
it's probably take some time to fully dissect.
Flesh this out. But to summarize, essentially, is I forget why I even got into this, but it was the idea archons, being these entities that manipulate humanity, just like the old, Greek gods, kind of like the mischievous,
like the fates, kind of,
right? And that they feed on the energy, or they, so like the idea that we can have this archonic energy system. So the archons are supposedly, they have no creative imagination, no intentionality. So they can't create, they can only manipulate.
Mm-hmm.
So
I've
they
heard
need
that
humanity.
In a lot of different
David
ways.
especially goes into that. But this all comes from the Gnostics.
Right.
It's a Gnostic belief
It's so
system.
Interesting though when you think about the way our society's set up right now with the technology we were talking about earlier, and how there's just this insane amount of information we're getting, and a lot of it is really negative. It works people up into an emotional frenzy.
Right.
And it's just what a perfect way to have a food
sustainable
source.
food source. And it's funny because just an interesting example of this, if there's any bit of that's true that Hollywood and the media is giving you hints about what's going on, Monsters Inc. is completely based off of this subject. I mean, the whole point of you had the scare floor. That's where all the monsters lined up at the beginning of the day, got their pack lunches, and they're waiting to open the doors and then scare children. And they collect the fear and that terror as an energy form. It's basically like energized adrenochrome for their society, which is you look at that, and I remember.
And if you know about Disney and these companies, was it Pixar though? Maybe I don't know.
They're all.
Well, it could also be just that we tell that story throughout time, that same kind of thing, and whether it's interesting, even if it's not some sort of elite in the industry letting us know what's going on, it could very well be that these are legends about these things feeding off of our fear that have been over time turned into, in a material westernized world, into a folkloric story that we turn into Monsters Inc. Or what was that movie that you mentioned earlier, John,
Little
before
Monsters.
the show? Little Monsters with Fred Savage.
It's the same idea.
Yeah, same idea.
Real Monsters.
Real Monsters, that great TV show with Tim Curry.
Yeah. I mean, there's a lot of these old. Isn't vampires similar?
Vampire, yeah. I mean, that concept, feeding off of humans.
My own brother, a goddamn shit-sucking vampire. Oh, you wait till Mom finds out, buddy.
That's great. Was it the Frog Brothers?
It was Lost Boys, yeah.
Lost Boys. Corey
Haim.
Corey Feldman.
God rest his soul.
That's the movie that ignited their careers together, actually.
That's a classic.
Yeah.
Great film.
Wait till Mom gets home.
Oh, brother, a goddamn shit-sucking vampire.
Who wrote that line?
That's like 90s teen.
But yeah.
Well,
that wraps
thanks
it up.
for tuning in. I think we're about.
But yeah, so shadow people.
Actually, I think now would be a good time to take a break. So let's stop for a second, and we'll be back in a minute.
See you in a bit.
Art, I know you've received thousands of emails regarding the shadow people, but here's another one. I've seen what I could only describe as black outlines shaped like people at night, almost always in a semi-sleeping state.
This experience is quite common, and it's documented for centuries, just under other kinds of names.
I was paralyzed in the bed. He seemed like a shadow.
Probably about 6'5", well over 6 foot, very tall.
The only night that I can say that really felt to me like something jumped inside of me and took over my body was the night that I jumped through the window.
I was sleeping in my bed, and there was a presence in the room.
So you may be at your most sensitive when you're asleep,
Absolutely.
most subject to perhaps being able to see these beings.
And we be back.
And we're back.
We be back, man.
Welcome back. We got at the end of the last episode, we asked if anybody had any creepy stories or anything related to, shadow people or sleep paralysis or just regular ghost stories.
Did we get one?
We got one. We got one. We got an email here from Charisse. Big fan of the show. Thank you, Charisse, for writing in your
She
personal
sounds like
account.
a really cool person.
She does sound like a cool person. That's a cool name.
I'm glad she was able to write in and give us a cool story.
Yeah, this is a pretty interesting case here. So thank you for sharing your personal account, Charisse. This is what Charisse wrote. Hello, I just wanted to share my...
Maybe you should do it in like a slightly creepier voice.
Or can you do a girl's voice?
Well, I will once it starts to be the creepy story.
Will you use a girl's voice since it's a girl?
That might ruin the story.
Yeah.
But it would be funnier.
It would be funny. I don't think the point of the story
is the first time.
humor.
Hilarious. Chris did that really seriously. Just started reading it.
Hello, I just wanted to share my experience with sleep paralysis. It's fascinating to me, and I can't wait to hear the podcast. The first time I had sleep paralysis was last summer. I had a sudden urge that I desperately needed to wake up. Something evil was in the corner of my bedroom, like it was either watching me or going to harm me. It was this overwhelming feeling that I need to leave this room or even this house before something malevolent occurred, but my body would not move. Panicking, I tried to wake myself up, but I just laid still. I kept screaming and even tried yelling, "Wake up!" and the dramatic, "Help me!" But it felt like it was coming out like maybe the smallest hum. My mouth just wouldn't open. I tried rolling over and even wiggling my fingers and toes, and nothing was working. My first thought was maybe this is a nightmare, so I kept my eyes shut and refused to look in the corner, afraid of what I might see. I'm not even sure my eyes could open if I had tried. After trying to toss and turn and still feeling paralyzed, I realized this isn't a dream, or like any nightmare I'd ever had before. It felt like I was fighting with my own body to get up, and something was holding me back. It's so hard to put into words how it felt. It was like this feeling of an evil, haunting presence lurking by me and getting closer and closer. I honestly believe something demonic was around me that I can't explain. Trying to get away and move any muscle, but being stuck and full of fear was the scariest shit ever. When my eyes finally opened, I frantically looked around, sat up, and my fan turned off on its own. Like someone walked by and switched it off as soon as I was able to move, which makes me believe even more that this was some type of ghost or spirit making its existence known. It gave me chills just thinking about this again. Also, the first time I attempted writing this, I couldn't sleep and was thinking of a proper way to describe the feeling, and a painting fell off my wall. It was around 1:30 a.m. and in the corner where I was afraid to look. I know my sleep paralysis incident was very, very mild compared to others I have read and heard about, but I feel like it still affects me to this day. I lose sleep thinking, what if it happens again, but this time worse?
Wow. You really put a bow on it there.
Thank you, Charisse, for sharing your account.
Is that Hillary Clinton?
It does sound like Hillary Clinton.
No, that's from
Fright Night.
Fright Night.
You're
Ed
so
Evil.
cool, Brewster.
Oh, you want that one?
Oh, you're so cool, Brewster.
You had it, Alicia.
He went on to do gay porn, didn't he?
Mm-hmm.
Anyway,
So
thank you,
Charisse's story.
Thank you,
Thanks for sharing,
We did-
Charisse.
Yeah, we didn't mean to make light of your account there.
No, that was actually a really creepy story.
Yeah, that was good. That was must have been a challenge. It sounds
good time
sounds
to-
like it's still affecting.
It's probably a good time to mention if you have a story, you want to share anything, we got the speak pipe on beliefhole.com. Beliefhole.com.
Yes.
You can leave voicemails pretty much about anything at this point,
Yeah,
right?
you can write. You can send. Record anything you like, and you can write. You can write in too. That's what Charisse chose to do, and that's just as good. We can read it on the air for you.
I think would be better speak pipe, but.
Well, yeah, I mean,
even if you mess up, if you're worried about,
Right.
calling in, you can leave as many as you want till you get it right. I mean,
Yeah,
we'll
right.
figure out.
Then you'd be like, oh, the last one I did, I think was the best.
You get 10 that are like, okay, I'm going to keep trying until I get this right.
We'll play each version on the show.
But yeah, so her experience definitely rolled into that kind of first typical experience of the sleep paralysis.
It seems so common.
According to her, she didn't even see a figure. But it was that overwhelming feeling
Sense
of
terror,
malevolent force. And
yeah, I've had the same thing. I didn't see anything, but it was a...
Yeah, what was you just said it's kind of the same
Well, it was
thing?
in the same room that
Yeah.
you were in. I mean, I just remember laying in bed and just being completely paralyzed and having my eyes open,
Yeah.
and just wanting to just move. Maybe the terror for me just came from the fact that I was could not move, and I was
Very
just
possible. Yeah, I think that's kind of the scientific argument.
One of the creepiest things that I've heard was actually my girlfriend. She goes through this kind of thing pretty regularly, and
Still?
Yeah, she still has these.
that is creepy. That story you told me the other day.
Yeah, so she. Yeah, I don't.
When did she
I've heard
start
this a
having
lot.
these experiences?
I think since she's been young. Just the weirdest kind of anecdote that I've heard was the fact that she will wake up. She'll be something in her dream, she'll have this feeling, or this non-dream state or whatever she's experiencing, she gets this very, I think sometimes they are actual dreams, and there's some sort of demonic force, some evil entity that feels like it's trying to possess her, and then she wakes herself up growling. Like she's actually growling.
That's terrifying. And you've experienced it, right?
Yeah, I've seen this before one time with her, and it's, freaky. Like, and then sometimes she'll do stuff in her sleep, like her arms will rise.
That's weird.
Like straight up, and she'll do this thing, and I'll be
Sounds like a possession.
Are you okay? And she's like, she's not awake, And then like I'll have to like wake her up. There were a lot of times where I could tell she was having a night terror, and I have to save her from it, like a hero that I am.
My dog has night terrors every night.
Yeah. I see dogs dream.
He went through something serious when he was a puppy, because he has nightmares almost every night.
Traumatic memories, you think?
And he's like almost 4. He kicks me. Yeah.
All used to do that.
But yeah, interesting. Weren't you going to mention some other stuff, Chris?
Yeah, well, that's kind of that typical, that I think the most common, that sleep paralysis figure in the corner, or even not, just the feeling of a presence.
Didn't you have some history?
Yeah. So this is like I was saying earlier, it seems it's because I think in today's society, this shadow people, it's become a popular phenomenon, like a kind of a fad or a meme in pop culture and online. So you kind of take it for granted and assume that it's this kind of modern urban legend, just kind of created like the Slender Man or something like that. But it's something that's been going on for, well, personally, my experience, obviously it occurred before even really the internet was in every home.
Obviously, people experience this.
But yeah, there's the interesting history behind it, and like all over the world in all different cultures, there are mentions being made of. Is that how you say this? Mentions
being made. That's what I was saying about not being able to get the right word.
Mentions being
made mention of.
See, you wanted to just keep the flow going,
right? I was trying to get back to my notes here.
That was a good ding. That was like, yay,
victory,
yay,
you've got mail.
Yay.
Okay. So, Jeremy, you had mentioned the jinn earlier, right?
Mm-hmm.
So that's from the Quran, and in the Quran they spoke about...
it's pronounced Karen.
It's also Dijin.
Mustard.
Dijon.
Sorry, go ahead.
They specifically mention beings that are pitch black sapient beings that are made from fire and smoke and not purely spiritual or physical in nature.
Yeah, that's so interesting when they say they're made. I don't even know what that means.
Are they made from smoke?
I mean, that could come from their folklore. That,
it's interesting.
Mythology.
Like made from fire. That just sounds creepy.
I think they say, weren't they created from a smokeless fire or something? Or they are made of smokeless fire or something like that?
Specifically, the quote that I got was mentioning smoke and fire. So, I mean, I'm sure there's a more specific quote about that we could look up. The ancient Egyptians, they had a term for shadow people called the Kalabut. I'm not sure how you pronounce it. It's Khailbut. But this was in ancient Egypt. This is like 600 BC. This is how far this goes back. It's not
further
just
than that, I think.
Yeah, I mean, this is probably something that's been with mankind since there was mankind. Mm-hmm. I would imagine.
If it's part of creation.
Yeah.
Once the light was created, so was the dark.
Right.
Shadows.
But yeah, in ancient Egypt, this type of being, the Kalbut, shadow people they would do kind of the bidding of humans, but they would do the bidding in the spiritual realm where we couldn't go. Like whether it was a good purpose or an evil purpose, they would basically be like entities that would go run off and do deeds for the people who had the power over them.
Right.
Which is interesting. Sometimes this makes me wonder, like in these different cultures where they have these entities play different roles and have different purposes, it makes me wonder if like it is all the same, but throughout history, maybe we had a different relationship with these things. Maybe back in the day when we knew more about these things, we were more in touch with that side of nature and reality. Maybe there was some sort of relationship that was mutually destructive and beneficial, where there was an awareness on both sides that we existed and they existed, and we actually like worked together, cooperated, whether for good or ill purposes. Well, yeah. It's interesting to think like we might have just forgotten all that.
It's interesting.
Well, yeah.
That's why I want
even in other parts of the world, it's like the Western world doesn't
absolutely
like,
over here
turned it into mythology and through our television.
Because if you can't diagnose it or measure it, it's not, it doesn't
even
exist.
Though you can measure it, I think it's just science refuses to really look at this stuff, I think, in any real...
In a lot of ways, yeah.
But if you look at that idea of summoning the jinn, right, or the genie to do your bidding or grant you wishes, it's very similar. And why I think a lot of people see it as the same thing, or research suggests that it all comes from the same origination point, is the old gods, like the wanting to summon the old gods, like we talk about, CERN and these other places, or Aleister Crowley in the desert with Jack Parsons, these kind of things where they're supposedly trying to summon, or like the movie The Gate is such a great example of that. But you summon the gods because you want power.
Right.
You want to get some kind of knowledge from the other side. It's always that, even like back with the jinn, the genies.
Well, it's sort of like the idea of selling your soul to the devil for things. You know?
You want something from that, and you're
willing to give up a certain part of your deeper self, I feel like, to make that manifest. And, you know, we talked about the Hollywood connection before and the exchange of power, and even all the musicians that openly say they've basically sold themselves for fame and fortune.
And it's interesting if you, like on a kind of a grander scale from the shadow people personal experiences, like if you think like, if you kind of keep the idea that shadow people feed off of our energy, like if there's some existence, some parallel reality where they come into our realm to feed off of our energy, the negative forces. On a grander scale, you can see it being the same kind of situation when you have public, you know, sacrifice of, you know, whether you want to argue there's some conspiracy behind like a global event and there were people pulling the strings to create this, and you want to make the argument that, well, they're doing this because they're feeding these things on another realm, and maybe there's an order, hierarchy to these things. Like maybe, you know, these shadow people experiences are small compared to something that's related to them, but are these grander entities where they take sacrifice and they'll accept that, you know, in return for favor. You know, it's interesting. All these things could be tied together if they do in fact exist.
Well, and that's the thing, which we'll go into the next episode.
Of course they exist.
What I'd like to do in the next episode is carry that into where they all come from.
Yeah.
Because that idea goes back like the archons and the worship of Baal and like what Saturn really is and how
yeah, that sounds interesting.
Yeah. Saturn death cult.
So we kind of touched on a couple different types of shadow people experience. One of a really common one is known as the Hat Man. I don't know if you've heard of this at all.
Yeah, actually, yeah.
It's basically your typical shadow person experience, but wearing a hat, usually a fedora. There's been experiences where people describe like a bowler cap or top hat or something, but bowler.
No one's wearing like a Yankees cap.
Bowler
cap. Dale Earnhardt Jr.
Yeah.
Cubs.
But the fedora is the most common one, which is interesting because it just made me think of Freddie Krueger. You know, the kind of similarity there. Like he comes at night.
Did you say similarity?
Similarity.
I like that word.
Similarity. I like that. That's when you're relating something similar to simulation. Yeah. So the similarity between Freddie Krueger is interesting. Like obviously fictional character, but the shadow man comes at night to feed on fear, wears a fedora type hat, lurks is a big keyword for both Freddie Krueger and shadow people in general.
Lurkers.
So it made me look deeper into this.
Want to suck the face?
No.
I really don't. Who would with that guy?
Krueger.
He had the best one. He had the best one-liners of any like horror film, I thought. They were so witty and
I like that she
creepy.
responded to the question.
Yeah,
no,
I know. Like,
thanks for asking.
And then right after he just goes,
Like, yeah, she had an option.
Yeah, no options there.
But it made me look
I don't think he was aware of the Me Too movement yet.
Probably not. It wasn't around.
No means no, Freddie.
The 80s.
No means no, Fred.
That'd be a great shirt, too.
Believable shirt.
No means no, Freddie. All right, any of you graphic designers out there, please submit these ideas. We'll give you a cut.
Boo.
Oh, that's good.
Me boo.
That's good.
Wow.
We might get in trouble.
For that?
You never know. People will be upset about everything.
Well, you know,
me boo.
That's part of life.
Hashtag me boo.
Oh, like it's
making light of the. Anyway,
I'm making light of it. In context, we're having fun with it.
That's true. I
sorry.
I still think that we should.
Ghost women deserve.
I still think we should make a. God damn it.
Every episode has Chris going, God damn it.
At least a couple times.
You take the Lord's name in vain so much.
I was going to say, as far as t-shirts go, I still think we should do that Never Forget t-shirt.
Oh, yeah.
Instead of the World Trade Center, it's like all the Ghostbusters lined up pointing up at the...
Oh, that'd be great.
The Marshmallow Man.
I don't know if we could actually do that, like, legally.
Well, we would have to make something that looks like Ghostbusters.
Yeah, but it's not.
That'd be kind of cheesy.
Maybe we should put our faces on there.
Yeah, we could. We just kind of adjust the proton packs.
Yeah.
So
we'll call them protein packs. They say like beef on the outside.
They just spray like nutritional supplements. Protein pack. That's so dumb.
Some whey protein.
Anyway, so yeah, what I was saying was, can I continue? Is that all right if I go back to the Freddie thing?
Let me get it all out.
There it is.
Okay.
Round 4.
Round 7.
So I'd heard this before, but I wanted to look a little more into it. You've heard the origin of where Wes Craven got the idea for Freddie. There was a story. I read a story in the LA Times about a kid who came over from, I think, Cambodia, somewhere in Asia, a refugee, with his family. And when he got here, he was complaining to his family that he was having these nightmares where there was an entity in his nightmare that was trying to kill him. And he refused to go to sleep. His parents kind of discovered this because he was staying up all hours, like taking amphetamines. And then so finally they took him to the hospital and put him to sleep. And he died in a nightmare. And Wes Craven read that. I was like, that's
terrifying.
Hollywood
Yeah,
gold.
I mean,
This is terrifying. You know,
and then Freddie was born.
And Freddie was born. But and that's funny because like the Freddie franchise is so interesting because they write the show into reality of our world where that show exists.
They write
like Freddie becomes real in a world where there's a Freddie movie and Freddie's fake, and he comes out. So it's almost like
Wes Craven's New Nightmare.
Yeah, did he actually was this character? I mean, this is crazy way out there, but what just made me think of this? What if this kid was having a nightmare of Freddie, that specific entity, and then the story inspired Wes Craven to write Freddie to bring him into our reality?
So
he wanted to be here.
He's hopping dimensions.
Yeah.
That's
very
that's
meta.
probably what happened.
Very
That's
meta.
definitely probably what happened.
But
it's fun to think.
But
that way.
But it made me think. Like I wanted to find the original article that he read just for fun. You know, just kind of creepy fun. But to read the actual words that he read that inspired him. And I didn't find the actual article, but I found a series of articles from the LA Times describing this was a syndrome for these people that came over from there.
Oh, really?
People who were like usually around the age of 33, which is interesting. Because that's how old
Masonic number
we are right now. But they would get here to the States, and then they would be having these nightmares, and then it would happen. Actually, let me just read you there's two articles, and I'll read you a paragraph from each that I think just kind of illustrate this strange phenomenon that occurred in the 80s. Okay, so this first one's from the LA Times. The title's Deaths of Asians in Sleep, Still a Mystery. This is April 24th, 1988. In 1981, the Centers for Disease Control began tracking a mysterious rash of sudden, unexplained nocturnal deaths occurring in apparently healthy male immigrants from Vietnam, Laos, and Cambodia. The problem, unknown in other ethnic groups, has now claimed more than 104 men, averaging 33 years of age, and one woman, according to Dr. Gib Parrish, a CDC medical epidemiologist. 98% of the deaths occurred between 10 p.m. and 8 a.m.
Wow.
It's interesting, kind of creepy, like a very strange phenomenon. Mm-hmm. And then the other article I have here, LA Times, medical experts seek clues to nightmare deaths, strike male Asian refugees. This is January 11th, 1987, so 1 year previous to the other article. Since April 1983, at least 130 Southeast Asian refugees have left this world in essentially the same way. They cried out in their sleep, and then they died. Medical authorities call this Asian death syndrome. The refugees have various names for it, one of them being night terror. Quote, in the Philippines, it's called Bangungut. In Japan, Pokari. In Thailand, something else, says Dr. Robert Kishmer. But it all roughly translates to the same thing, nightmare death. As a deputy Cook County medical examiner, Krishner has investigated 5 nightmare deaths himself, including a Laotian father and his son who died in a Northside Chicago apartment in bed asleep and only 15 months apart. The people in the neighborhood are terrified, Krishner says.
Wow.
That's creepy. Freaky. Like I didn't realize that was a whole syndrome. I didn't realize it was a whole syndrome. I always thought it was like one rare case that Wes Craven read about. But
Asian death
it's a whole thing.
Do you remember that like old anecdote that like you can't die in your dreams?
Right, like you'll wake up every time before you die.
But if you actually do die
then
in your dreams,
would die.
then you die.
That's interesting. There's some relation there. I mean, and like some of the scientific, the skeptics were saying. It could be some sort of malnutrition, the refugees coming from somewhere else. But this only ever happened. This only ever happened one time that we have in recorded history from a certain group in a certain, Well,
so, they had names for it in Laos and Vietnam, Cambodia, the different names for this.
Well, that's the thing. The phenomenon died off here after people stopped escaping to the U.S. or becoming like westernized. But in Cambodia and Laos and Thailand, this continued to go on with these people.
Yeah, it's pretty strange.
And they were all refugees going through terrible stuff. I wonder, could it be that there are entities that feed off of those energies and then pinpoint those people to interact with and kill in their sleep? Maybe out there stuff, but...
Maybe there's some old cultural promise or curse that was made, years ago. Maybe Genghis Khan.
On that continent. It's all on the same continent. Different countries, but same continent for the most part.
Genghis Khan.
But it's interesting how that...
Genghis Jin.
It's interesting how that just ties in with a little bit in some sort of abstract way with the Hat Man and Shadow People, the Freddie dream connection.
Yeah.
It's a very loose tie-in, but it's interesting.
Well, it's bizarre, and that how many people see the Hat Man
Yeah, it's a super common experience.
That's what Jess, my girlfriend, after she was experiencing this stuff, she was recounting the story to one of her friends, and her friend told her, "Oh, that's weird. I had a similar experience," and he was describing it. He didn't know that other people experienced this, but he described the figure and said that it was weird because the figure always looked like it had a hat, like a fedora.
Oh, he had the same experience.
And she's like, "Do you know that what you're saying is something that thousands of other people experience every year, whatever?" That's a weird connection.
Yeah, it's one thing about the internet is, once this became, a tool, people started to realize like, oh, this isn't just me. Like, I didn't think that what I had experienced was very uncommon. Like, I assumed it was just a one-off.
Yeah, there's no way to know that back then.
Yeah.
Yeah, the internet has definitely opened up the floodgates of a lot of information and strange things.
Well, the last point I wanted to make on shadow people, I just wanted to say, tying into like the internet, the first time I ever heard of shadow people was on Coast to Coast AM with Art Bell, the late great Art Bell. But he had somebody on. He had somebody on called Thunderstrikes. It was a Native American from. Yes, exactly.
Timely.
From the Native American from I think he was a Tangled Hairs elder or something like that.
Tangled Hairs.
Yeah.
Variety of.
But he was raised by his grandmother, who was a medicine woman, and he became a shaman. But if you want to get more into shadow people, it's a great interview to listen to. It's like 2 hours. But he breaks down like types of shadow people, experiences of shadow people, their purposes here. Yeah. Thunderstrikes, yes.
It's like the Nickelodeon word of the day.
I love the sound of thunder. It's like my favorite thing.
That's great.
Right now, people are like starting to want to go to sleep.
Either that or they know there's a storm.
There's a storm brewing.
There's a storm coming.
We haven't had a storm in a while.
That's why it's so humid here in the studio.
Angela's small storm.
Anyway, check that out. We'll put that interview in the show notes.
What was his name again one more time?
Thunderstrikes.
Thunderstrikes?
Thunderstrikes.
What an awesome name.
Yeah. It's a great name.
Thunderstrikes. I love the names.
He has a more American name too.
Objects.
Verbs or objects.
Nouns.
I think he's half
Adjectives,
Irish, half
adverbs.
Cherokee or something. But yeah.
Thunderstrikes hard.
That was his dad.
It's one of the most interesting topics because I think it weaves in between these different worlds of paranormal phenomenon, like not just ghosts, not just spirits, hauntings, not just demons. I mean, these very kind of bracketed kind of paranormal events and experiences. And
bracketed, I like that word.
Yeah.
The idea of there being a shadow entity that lives just beyond our realm that can feed off of the energy.
It is just as real as you and I.
And you look at the Matrix, right? That's completely like an archonic picture, a picture of like how archonic society would be. You'd have the slaves, the human race that are feeding these things.
And just have no idea.
And they have in the movie, they have to be machines.
Yeah, which they even represent in the same kind of mechanical. And essentially this all ties back in. I was just excited because I can't get into it too much right now, but the Saturn connection, the Saturn death cult. What was you saying?
Wow.
I get so excited.
Wow, you get so excited
about it. That's exactly what I was going to say.
Wait, I can't remember.
Matrix.
The Matrix, right. It shows this very mechanical society and a very like no creative energy or anything. And what's interesting is that if you look at how it's compared, I've lost what I was going to say again. That's why I'm...
Oh, no.
It's Thunderstrikes. I was going to say the Saturn death cult, the black cube, which we'll get into next time, is a symbol for this Saturn worship. And
like the thing in Hellraiser?
That's what I was going to say.
That's what I was thinking of initially when you told me that.
The black cube connects, and then you also have...
Wait, did he use that did he move that around like a Rubik's Cube to like
it was a puzzle game. No, it was a puzzle game that a human would have to solve, and once they did, it would open up this world of...
Didn't it have spikes on it too?
His face did.
Oh, that's
this
right.
was just a box.
So in a way...
Nails. Is it called Spike
Pinhead.
Pinhead.
So in a way...
Wow, that was a dark movie.
In a way, oh my God, I couldn't even watch it back then.
I know.
I don't know why I could watch it more back then when I was a kid.
Demon.
But it opened up. It opened up the world, the other world that would bring the Cenobites in, they were angels and demons of pleasure and pain. You know,
there was basically a trans-dimensional gateway.
Exactly. It was the genie's lamp.
Was it the box?
But it's interesting because that black cube also goes to think about what does Pinhead look like, right? He has this kind of look to him similar to like the Borg. Right? The Borg that are just mechanical. They have no creative energy, no humanity. They're just these archon-like, dark,
feed off of
zombie creatures that need to feed off of other things, right? That's what makes the Borg.
Well, they
community.
make them. They destroy other
they assimilate.
species.
They assimilate. They take them in. They feed off
to
them
make them better, which they
just
think is
like
to be Borg.
But what do they fly around in?
Cubes.
Ooh, big black cube. But it goes back to Saturn worship. It's like saying
Interesting.
Mecca.
Yeah, it would be a good episode to do.
Yeah,
Unless we blew it all.
No, we'll do that next.
We blow our load on Archons.
Well, those are just dibble dabbles. Next time. Next time
Why am I
we'll go deep into the Saturn worship. You'll see where we do it now, Saturn, and how it ties into all of this, like shadow people, reptilians, shapeshifters, MK Ultra. Everything goes back to this very, very beginning of time.
Koi fountains.
Worship.
Oh,
Koi
you're
fountains.
so cool, Brewster.
Evil Ed.
He did do gay porn, right?
Mm-hmm.
Anyway,
he did do gay porn.
Do we want to bring anything else in before we jump to the interview?
Well,
we pretty much cover everything, or did you have anything
as
you
far
want
as
to
the
talk about?
shadow people so far? I mean, yeah, because I want to get into the Archons and the Saturn death cult and all that next episode, because we can go very deep into that, and I don't want to get cut off. I don't want the bell to ring while I'm trying to get into it.
Okay. Yeah. You know, yeah. The one thing I want to look into sometime, if we ever come back to shadow people, why in doorways? Like when I had my personal experience, it was in the doorway.
Oh yeah.
So many experiences involve some sort of threshold or doorway.
Maybe it has to do with the bridge between two worlds.
That's what I'm wondering. Yeah. It'd be interesting to look more into that. Like, or could it be the invited in thing too?
Well, it's interesting.
Like the vampire thing. Like
I want to tell Mike a story about. Remember the. Should I tell that?
Yeah.
It's not really directly about shadow people, but it's
tied in with dreams.
Yeah, it's definitely it was the most horrific nightmare I've ever had.
Let's do a shot first.
So I was making a big transition in my life. I had decided to. Okay, it sounds a little weird. I was secure in who I was as a person. Let's put it that way. But I was moving to Seattle, and.
That's what you said that. But I was going to Seattle.
And my father was accompanying me across this cross-country trip, and we had been driving all day, and we were headed up into some pretty high, I can't remember what state we were in, but we were getting into the mountains, and we had been driving all day, and my car was getting pretty close to being done. You could smell the engine burning, and it was I don't think it was quite wintertime below the mountains, but it was definitely there was a lot of snow in the higher altitude areas. And we had to stop basically because my car was burning up. And we ended up at the top of this mountainous area. We hadn't seen anything in miles and miles and miles. And there was this hotel that we had found. And I get in the parking lot. It wasn't even a hotel. It was like a motel, like a cabin motel area.
Up in the woods.
Up in the woods. And we get there, and there's no one else there. It's just me and my father and the woman that was running it and the other people that were working there. And so we park and we go in and we get some food. They had a little diner area, and my dad orders this Salisbury steak that later comes into the story. There's this horrible piece of meat, just bacteria-laden, old, wintery meat. And
Wintery.
The lady starts telling us about how the only people that work there are basically ex-criminals or criminals, just trying to escape the law, basically.
Why would she tell you that?
I do not know. But this place is weird. And the only other two people were in there were men sitting at the bar at the very end, and they were just looking at us weird, and we were just there's no one else here, nowhere else to go. My car is full of all the valuables I have at that time. And so me and my dad go back into the cabin, and we're both freaked out at this point. And there's nowhere we can go at this point. It's dark, and I think we both wanted to leave. But so we basically moved the cabinet in front of the dresser in front of the door.
Really?
And
you were that freaked out?
We were freaked out. We did not want to stay there, but we didn't really have a choice. So, but that was the night I had the worst nightmare of my life, and
it was the worst one you ever had.
Yeah, I can still remember all the details about it. It was horrifying. So my dad had eaten the Salisbury steak. I don't know if this was part of the reason the nightmare was so bad, but he had the worst smelling I've ever smelled in my life. And because we couldn't open the windows or anything, it was lofted in this room, and it smelled like Satan. It just smelled like Satan evil bacteria.
That's how the demon got into your room. Through that steak.
It was so bad. Toilet. And the dream was just it was weird, but
How do you even sleep with that? Like,
I was waking up gagging, like going in and out of this nightmare that just kept repeating
Definitely
over and over and over again. It was, what's his name from that 70s show? Eric.
What? Eric from that 70s show?
Eric from that 70s show, and he had
the devil?
He had like pins coming out of his side of his head, and his mouth was made of like metal, and like was like not taped shut, but it was just like like there was metal that kept his mouth
bolted
closed.
Shut.
And he would like it was in that room, I think. Like that was the dream.
That's what made it so real too. Was you were waking up into the room.
I kept
you were
waking up in the
in.
room, and it was this repeating dream that kept happening, and I'd be looking at the corner of the room, and he would just come out of the room slowly, and then he'd just be like right in my face, like screaming. It was the feeling of like needles going into my brain.
Oh my God, it's terrifying.
And it was just like, and then it would like finally subside for a second, and he'd go away, and I'm like, this is gonna happen again. And it just kept happening over and over, and like the feeling of just raw terror, and just like, it was like meeting it, and it's just, you can't really explain it. It's just it's like being in hell. That's what it felt like. It was pure terror. Yeah. And it just kept going and going and going.
As crazy as it might sound, because it was like the face that thing took on was obviously like a famous person from your world, you know. Mm-hmm. But to me, it does not seem crazy at all. The way that the reaction that whatever it was got out of you, it makes it seem like it totally could have been some other entity that was there to feed off of your fear, especially considering what did the lady say earlier that you met? She said that place was, only people that worked there were people with dark backgrounds, criminals, felons, ex-cons, maybe murderers, people that were escaping the norms of reality and trying to hide away. Mm-hmm. Wouldn't that be a place that would be a beacon? It'd be a beacon for these strange entities to come in and feed off that stuff. So you came in there probably looking like a fresh piece of meat, like, oh, there's some good juicy energy. I'm gonna go after this guy.
Especially since I like get my life started in a new direction.
Exactly. You're all hopeful, young,
and turn that hope to a delicious.
And it probably just like possessed that nasty piece of steak on Dad's, so it came through his shit and his gases, and then just permeated into the room.
That's how they got into our dimension, was through Dad's gas.
Exactly.
Yeah, it was definitely, it was pretty terrifying.
It's interesting because it is like that edge of sleep thing. Like, what is that about? Is that sort of?
It is funny how it kept coming from the doorway, though.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
It was just like
weird tie-in.
Yeah,
it's strange. It makes me think like that twilight time, that hypnagogic state or whatever people get in. Like, it's interesting because like how much of that is a sort of doorway, a natural doorway that exists in human biology and human consciousness. You know, I had one of the other crazy experiences I had in our house was my one and only like complete out of body experience, and that happened. Same situation, waking up with sleep paralysis, frozen. I'd overheated, I think, in bed. It was a bad time in my life. Maybe that played a factor, dude.
When you're in a bad place, your energy is going to be vulnerable.
Yeah,
you're going to be open to like.
That's what I'm saying. But it was interesting because this wasn't necessarily attack right away. It was I left my body, but I remember woken up frozen. I had been like, bad place. Like I remember I was like watching marathons of Law and Order Special Victims Unit and drinking taco sauce from the bottle. It was just like an unhealthy period of my life. And so definitely like shining out some lights into the demonic realms. Like, hey, here's the guy who needs some
easy prey.
Anyone drinking taco sauce from the bottle is not in a good place.
It was a dark place. But so I woke up and I was frozen, and I had sleep paralysis before, so I was familiar with that. But I felt this vibration go through me, like from my feet up through to my head. And as I felt this vibration continue, all of a sudden my view of the ceiling, because my eyes were wide open, my view started to shift from what I was seeing directly above me. And all of a sudden it started moving to the left a little bit. And all of a sudden I was seeing other parts of the room. And I was like, how am I? And as soon as I started to freak out, because I knew I was awake and my body was there, then that shift changed, the view changed, and I was sucked right back to the view that I was at. It was just like a micro movement away from my physical body. And then the vibration began again. And at that point, I was like, fuck it. I don't have anything going for me. If I'm dying and I'm leaving my body, I'll just go. And I went and left my body, and I floated down to the floor. And I remember thinking I was going to push myself up, but instead I just moved up, just through thought. I went down the stairs, and at that point, I was like, I can't believe this is happening, but I know this is happening, but I'm going to prove it. So I went through my door, went for the handle, and didn't see a hand, but I went right through the door, went into the hallway. I started taking notes in case I was going to survive this experience. And I looked at every lamp that was on. I remember floating into the living room, and Dad was passed out in the chair, mouth wide open, snoring with some
catching flies.
Yeah, with some movie, some crazy movie on the TV.
Stephen Colbert.
Probably it wasn't before that time, but we were floating over and there was a book on the little like TV tray next to him. And so I was like, I'm going to look at and this is the other thing I remember. In dreams, I can never remember, or I can never make out words and letters. And it's all gobbledygook, higgledy-piggledy. But I could read the terms, and I remember looking, the page was 34, and so I logged that in. And then that's when I was like, I'm going to interact with Dad, see if I can wake him up. And then the moment I tried to do that, it was like sucked back into my body, but I didn't wake up. I just all of a sudden was again in my body and couldn't believe what happened. Got up, looked around, everything was exactly how I'd seen it. And I didn't tell people about it for a while because I always thought I'd be the person that would be like, yeah, anything crazy paranormal happened to me, I would tell people. You know, when people say like, I don't want people to think I'm crazy, like what a little bullshit. Like, who cares? But then it was less the feeling I would think people thought I was crazy, more the feeling that I thought people would think I was making it up.
Yeah.
That's what frightened me.
And you're still probably processing it too.
Yeah, like I couldn't believe it, you know, but it was so real.
When I saw the UFO.
Oh, that's a good one to get into.
Real quick, blow all our stories.
Real quick though,
I'm not going to talk about it today.
Real quick at the end of this story. So I immediately started doing research on like out-of-body experiences because I never had anything like this before. And then I read in out-of-body experiences, it's super common, if not an indicator, that you're going to have an out-of-body experience if you're having a lot of lucid dreams leading up to that experience, which I had all like 2 weeks in advance. Every night was a lucid dream.
God, they're such a close phenomenon.
I know. Everything seems so tied together. And the other interesting thing was the vibration. Like most people who have out-of-body experience the vibration.
Before.
Which, I had never heard that before. And then the last weird connection was I had heard one name, a voice say a name when I was in this state. Donovan. Freddie Prince Jr.
Freddie Prince.
Rachel Lee. No, it was weird because it's not a name you would think is the name of a person. You would think of it as the word Eden, the place, the biblical place. So, but when I heard it, it was like, this is a name. Eden. So I Googled when I woke up, or it was probably before Google, it was like Yahoo search or Ask Jeeves. But I looked up Eden and out-of-body experiences. It turns out the first professional scientist to do any sort of study on the out-of-body experiences, last name was Eden, which I thought was just a crazy coincidence.
And then you got his book and you read it and you discovered the truth.
No, I didn't do any of that.
Oh, but you should have.
I thought it was an interesting point. You can make fun of it, Jeremy, if you want. Just ruin my story there.
Bullshit.
Yeah, what are you talking about?
I'm so relaxed, Mr. Cool.
I'm sorry, I'm relaxed.
You got your cut-off shirt and your
It's
Detroit.
warm in here.
Absolutely dare you.
Anyway,
I think that's fascinating.
My point was that's weird that everything does seem to kind of tie in, and that state of awareness where these phenomena occur.
Well, there's definitely a zone, it seems like. But it's interesting, the vibration, because that's the same thing you hear about with DMT. Right before you pop out,
it makes total sense.
Everything becomes polygonal, and then you feel the vibration, and then it would make sense that if your consciousness is actually leaving and going somewhere,
like,
that it would be the same as an out-of-body experience.
Did you hear anything? Like I've heard a lot of.
I just heard.
It's
a hum.
Well, it's like a static electricity. I've heard. It's like it gets so intense, like you feel it and hear it.
The only thing
I got,
the only thing that was like that for me was the feeling. I didn't hear a static, but it was the feeling of that vibration.
Did
right
it
before
feel
I
almost
popped out.
like electricity?
Yeah, it was very electrical. It was almost like a staticky feeling.
Yeah, that's what I've heard.
Which is interesting. I mean, all this stuff seems to tie in so much, but like a lot of paranormal experiences, even UFO sightings or even Bigfoot sightings or strange mists, these things all have a lot of times have a relation to the smell of ozone, which is what is created. Which is what is created when you have static electricity, the smell of ozone. So
we're gonna get to the bottom of this life thing eventually. One day we're just gonna be like, we're just gonna disappear because we figured it out.
What's at the bottom of the belief hole? All the answers?
No one's there anymore because they were teleported to the next
Where did
dimension.
Jeremy, John, and Chris go? They finally found the bottom of the belief hole.
They figured it all out.
Ain't not coming back.
It's all one day everything's gonna connect in perfect order, and all the weird paranormal and conspiracy theories.
Just like a Cenobite puzzle box.
Yeah. And then we go to the next phase.
Then we get the pleasure pain demons.
And we find out that the godhead is Freddie Prince Jr.
A little dramatic. It didn't mean it to be that loud.
That was good though. All right. Well, I think
that was pretty good.
I think we could probably wrap up this section of the show, and we can move on to our interview with our featured guest here.
Our first interview.
I'm excited about that.
Yeah. So stick around, listeners, and tune in for a compelling story that will be sure to leave you tingled to the bone, on the edge of your seat. Welcome back, guests. For our interview today, we have John from the Phantom Faction podcast. They're a paranormal podcast to educate, entertain, and assist anyone dealing with... Oh, my phone went to sleep.
That you can't blame that on the shadow person.
Right, I can't. Point. That was my phone. Okay.
Dealing with the paranormal.
Right. To educate, entertain, and assist anyone dealing with their own personal paranormal experiences. So, John, why don't you give us a little background on how you guys got together and where you're located and your first encounter that brought you to this sort of lifestyle?
Sure. Well, thanks for having me, guys. I appreciate it. Nice to talk to people that are, like-minded and they're not going to think you're crazy when they hear something that's out of the norm, right?
Yeah, for sure.
Absolutely.
So we're based out of small town Ontario, Canada. I know a lot of people are not familiar with Canada, but basically we're north of Toronto. That's
interesting.
I lived in London for a year.
Oh, cool. Right on.
Yeah, that's where he actually went to audio school out there.
Oh, nice. Okay. Yeah. Well, I work with a company down in London. So yeah, cool. Right on. No coincidence, right?
Right.
So long story short, we now, through the podcast, we seek out people that are dealing with, generally tends to be poltergeist activity. Poltergeists tend to be the ones that bang the walls, move objects. Sometimes they hit people. Sometimes they scratch them. And let's face it, if you've got a friendly ghost around your house, people usually are not going to call about it.
Right.
So we get people that are calling, to give you an example, people that are waking up and they're positive they were bit or they were hit. Things moving in their home that can't be explained, that unsettles people. Imagine you're in your living room, all of a sudden the skill saw in the basement comes on, it's not even plugged in.
Yeah.
So that's the kind of stuff we get called to. And basically the way I got into it was, if we do a rewind like 10 years ago, I was a total non-believer. If somebody had experienced something, I would be the guy who would probably make the shitty remark, yeah, whatever, how much were you drinking or smoking, whatever, because I didn't believe it, I hadn't experienced it. Then I meet a woman who turns out it's going to be somebody I'll spend the rest of my life with. And the more I'm around her home, began to have things happen that I kept trying to put a label on it. Okay, well, this was, a heavy vehicle went down the road and that's why that, but it never fit, right? And the longer I was there, the more things that happened, I began to get confronted with something I couldn't explain, the paranormal, and yet I wouldn't face it. And then it got to the point where I knew something was happening, like being woken up in the middle of the night, could swear like somebody who was big and heavy sat on the end of the bed. And I remember jumping out of the bed and thinking of somebody like an intruder, right? And my falling out of the bed and the blankets going over. She's like, "What are you doing?" I said, "There's somebody in the house." And she's looking around, lights on. There's nobody there. Like, you're a freak, right? Go back to bed. And the first time it happens, you go, okay, well, that was a dream. Second time, third time, fourth time, you're going, okay, you know what? There's something going on here. In her home, I had an incident where they were all going out shopping. They were both, it's a second go-round relationship, right? And she's got 2 daughters, and they're going shopping. I'm like, I'm not going anywhere. She was a operations manager with a cable company, phenomenal cable package, so I could watch boxing and UFC, whatever it was. So I said, go have a good time, and I'm going to watch this. And then this is, honestly say, this is the first time in my life that I actually had something paranormal scare the living bejesus out of me. I down there watching TV, and all of a sudden you could sounds like 2 doors upstairs start slamming. And then, and they go crazy. And to replicate it, I tried it one time, and I had to give it to make these doors slam, right? And then I run up there, and there's nothing up there. Go back downstairs, and I remember I sat there like educated. It's winter time up here when this happened, and so there's no windows open. The heating system doesn't have the power to do that. And then I sat down. When I finally clicked the mute and started watching whatever I was doing, all of a sudden, it sounded like literally every door on the upper level went nuts. So bedroom doors, bathroom doors, closet doors. And I remember I stood there, I got up, and I'm not going to lie, I probably stood there for 20 seconds before I got the nerve to run up there. Because the only way that you could explain it, you had to have a person standing at every door slamming these things. So, you think you're going to run up there and find 5, 6, 7 guys up there just going apeshit on your doors, right? And where I'm sitting is both the entrances to the home are visible. Nobody came in. And this is what happened. This was a theme with this place. Every time you would run to investigate what was going on, it would stop instantly. And that's when I remember when she came home, I told her, I said, you know what, this effing house is haunted. And she goes, you're crazy. And I told her, she goes, go, give me a break. And then, of course, I got a beer in my hand. I was, well, how many of those do you have, right? I just cracked this open because I'm scared shitless right now, right? And with all the things that went on in that house, I would see what I would call now shadow people out of the corner of my eye. But at the time, I would just saw a movement, right? That's what I labeled it. So when we got really serious, I said, look, I'm sorry, I'm not moving in this house. We can sell both our houses. You can move in with me, but I said, there's no way in hell I'm moving in this house. I knew there was something going on.
Yeah.
So she said, cool, we'll move in with you. But she wanted to renovate her place just to maximize the value because she bought it as like a real fixer-upper. So I'm fairly handy. Cool, I'll help you out. I start doing stuff. And no word of a lie, guys. The minute I started doing the rentals in this place, things ramped up. I remember one time I'm in the kitchen, and the kitchen was one of the rooms that hadn't been touched. So you got lath and plaster, I'm ripping all that out. And I remember standing there, and I'm pulling all this stuff down, and it was like somebody in the basement below me just took like a sledgehammer and smoked the floor so hard, you could actually feel it through your feet. And then I remember it's a trap door to the basement. There's nobody down there. And then you get the clue in that, okay, this is whatever's here doesn't like this. And I started, after multiple times going there, quite often on my own, knowing that there's something going on, I'd walk in the door and I'd start kind of being mouthy to the ghosts is the way I would look at it, right? That's the way it was back then. And when they started moving tools or hiding tools, or even tools would disappear and we'd have to buy replacements, then I'd get belligerent and I'd come in and I'd swear at them. And I called this, hey, bitch, what'd you do today, right? That's what I would do when I walk in the door. And so not knowing anything, I'm ramping this thing up even further, right?
Yeah.
And at the same time, with all the bravado when you walk in the door, like, yelling at this thing, I'm not going to lie to you, I was scared. Things would, like, you'd be working and all of a sudden, like, on a counter, a saw would fall off a counter. There's no way it could fall off on its own. And then I mentioned to you guys about, I call implanted thoughts before we went on the air. And I swear to God, this house, it was like it was implanting thoughts in her head. And she'd keep coming up with ideas that would take it longer to get this stupid thing done, right?
Keep you there.
Yeah, exactly.
That's interesting.
And then when we finally got it done, I remember it was maximum 3 days. And so we're now fully moved into my house. I'm sitting there watching TV, and I was actually thinking, like, thank God I don't got to go in that place anymore. I don't have to deal with this nonsense. I don't know what it was. I don't care. I want to put it behind me. And it wasn't 30 seconds that I had that thought in my head. And right beside my TV, out of the wall, walks this massive shadow person. And where my TV is, there's a sliding glass door beside it. And at first, I actually thought somebody was coming in. Like, well, what the hell, right? And I remember I stood up, but then you realize, like, the sliding glass door is not open. It actually was coming out of the wall, and it walked about 4 steps, and now it's in the middle of my room, and and every time it would take a step, you could feel like the weight of the floor creaking. And I mean, we're talking huge. We're talking 7 feet. This would be like, take Andre the Giant and just paint him pitch black, and then put him in the room, right? And so then the floor is creaking, and then it just turns and it faces me. And so I've got the silhouette, but he's pitch black. It's not like he's kind of like, 25%. I mean, he's 100% there, but he's black as could be. I couldn't make out eyes, a face, nothing like that, but I could picture the silhouette, the arms, the head, the whole bit. And it just stood there. And now I'm just like, I want to crawl up the walls and get out of this room. But where he's standing is the only way to get out. Like, the stairs to go upstairs are almost behind him, the doorway to get out, and a sliding glass door is like 4 feet, 5 feet from him. And it just stood there and stared at me. I remember I was actually hyperventilating because I didn't know what the hell I was facing. It doesn't look real, but yet when it walks, you hear a creak in the floor go. And then on top of that, when it walked by a lamp, it blocked the light as it went by it. And then it just turned and it walked into a wall and was gone. And I remember I sat there like in a panic state for I don't know how long. And then literally this became a daily occurrence. It could happen in the daytime, nighttime, usually multiple times a day. And it would always be the way it would scare the living crap out of you the worst, right? Like, you walk around a corner to go into the kitchen, into a bedroom, bathroom, and it would just come out of the wall as you walk in and scare you to death, right? Of course, you run into the room. I didn't stand there. I remember one time I was at the kitchen sink. We had a problem. I think I was fixing the clog or some crazy thing. And I could hear somebody walk up my deck, up the stairs, and you could hear the whole deck groaning. And I saw this quick little glimpse of something black go by my side door, and I'm standing there, and I froze because I knew what it was. And it literally came to the window in front of the kitchen sink, and it just stood there facing me. And I couldn't even move. I couldn't even move, and I'm just looking at it, and all you can see is this giant black silhouette. And then it finally walked along the deck, and where I finally got some gonads, was it was going towards my daughter's bedroom. And I kind of unfroze. And then I ran to my daughter's bedroom. She's out like a light. And I flipped on the spotlight to the deck, and there was nothing there. But this stuff would happen all the time. Finally got where things really started to get out of hand was I remember I'm walking to the fridge to get something, and I got punched in the back. And I mean, I got smoked good. And I remember I spun around, and of course, the first thing you think is an intruder, right? And there's nothing there. Whenever this thing would hit me, it would be invisible. But when it tormented me, it would always be in this massive, giant shadow person.
Ultimate terror.
It's almost like it has a certain amount of energy it can it can
Physical
utilize,
or
and then
visual.
if it's in scary, in physical form.
And we spoke a little bit before, and we talked about how fear to these things is like energy.
Mm-hmm. Right.
We use the term it's food. I was like a buffet because I'm scared to death. And I remember I would kind of just delicately touch on the subject. Like, so we're sitting there with the kids having dinner and my better half, and I would be like, so did you guys like hear anything last night? And it would walk up my stairs, and my stairs, they creak, right? And it would come up the hallway, and then I'd run out to flip on a light because, okay, I was positive it was a thing, but you'd feel like an idiot. Next thing you know, some guy's clubbing you with a bat because an intruder came in, but you go, oh, it's a ghost, so I'm not going to look at her. And so I had to turn the light on, right? And nobody experienced anything. And they'd all look at me. I'd give them little bits. Like, I heard something strange, and I thought I saw a shadow. And everybody look at me, and everybody goes kind of, and then I'd start to drop it. And then that's where, in my head, I remember one time I just said, you know what? This is that thing from that house, and this is the payback again. And that went on for a long time. So I'd wake up at night, I'd get punched, I'd get hit. It was almost like a clubbing motion. Like, if you say you're sitting at the dinner table and you say, like, when you're a kid, feed me, you bang on the table. That would be the motion that I'd get when I'd get hit. And I'd usually get hit from like the mid-thigh down to my foot. Once when I was on my stomach, I got hit on my back pretty good, and it would leave bruises. I remember waking up one time, and this is the first time Lisa got an inkling that, okay, something's going on, right? I woke up and I'm screaming because my foot is being squeezed. I couldn't pull my foot away. And my foot's in the air, and I'm screaming. And then finally she goes, John, and then it stopped, right? She goes, what are you doing? What's going on? And then right away she goes, you had a bad dream, relax, right? And I just said, yeah, because I didn't want to.
Wow, your foot was in the air when this happened?
Yeah, it was actually lifted up in the air about 2 feet off the bed. Ooh. And I was trying to, and I mean, it had like, say the top of your foot around where your toes, right? And the next morning when I went to the bathroom, like that foot, it was bruised, like I couldn't believe. It hurt to walk. And that's when I finally, I knew I had to talk to her, right? And I said, look, we got to talk. And the kids weren't there. And I said, look, this is going to really sound crazy, but I need you to hear me out. And I said, okay, we got something going on that I can't explain. And I said, remember I told you how your house was haunted? And thank God she was like, she just nodded, yeah, okay. And I said, whatever was at your house, I swear it's here. And I said, Lisa, like when I woke up screaming, and I showed her my foot. And then, my arm or my leg would be bruised up and whatever. And she was actually relieved. Because she said, you've been acting so weird. I didn't know if you were having an affair or what the hell was going on, right? Or you got money trouble? Or I said, no.
Thank God it's just a demonic spirit.
Yeah, thank God, yeah. It's not some girl with, big chest or whatever, right? So, and then she actually took it serious.
Yeah.
So from there, I called in a paranormal investigation group, and I was pretty tight-lipped, and I was really nervous. I didn't tell anybody. She was the first person I even mentioned anything to. Other than when I dropped hints, hoping somebody'd say, yeah, I heard that creaking on the floor or whatever, but nobody did. And then they came and did an investigation, and yeah, they confirmed. So right away, okay, you're not crazy. They played EVPs for her, and whenever they bring up my name, there'd be things like, what do you think of John? And you'd be like, kill, and all this stuff. And that was all to intimidate and scare me, of course, at the time. But it didn't end there. I got psychic help. One psychic, she had never admitted she was intimidated by this thing. She was supposed to come and do a house clearing, and she never came back.
Wow.
Yeah, she didn't want to deal with it. She actually tried to get me to work out a bargain with it to let it stay and then I said, no, look, I can't do this, right? Then she canceled, and she wouldn't come. But the one thing I can say through the paranormal investigators, and it's one other psychic, when they said you got to control your fear, because fear is like you guys said, it's like food, right? It's energy.
Yeah.
And the minute I began to do that, it began to show up less. It wasn't every day. If you control your fear, the less that they're going to come around. But when you run out of a room, if you scream at them in fear or you run out of your house, whatever it is, that is energy to these things, and it ramps up. And it's almost like you're giving it what it needs to go to the next level.
Right, which is so difficult, I would imagine, for people who experience this regularly. You know, Jeremy, your girlfriend's experienced this quite a bit, but the ability to try and stay and pretend like you're not frightened must be so intense. Because I'm imagining this situation, like, I can't imagine just ignoring it.
Right.
Like that intense fear, you know?
I remember in my kitchen, we got an island, and I was doing something, I turn around, and there it is, right? It's on the other side. And I remember... And it took everything I had. I bet you, like my hair was placed standing up on end. But I literally, I think I was making a sandwich or something, and I literally made the sandwich. There was another door that I could walk out to get to the main room, and I took that, and I walked. I didn't run. I didn't, you know what I mean? Like, and then it would, instead of happening every day or multiple times a day, it would start to fade out. But the one thing, this thing would always try to pop back in. And I've got this... take it for what it's worth as an amateur investigator of the paranormal. I have this theory about implanted thoughts that I think people need to be aware of. And this thing would start to talk to me. And whenever I would think about it, and especially when I'd think about resolution, how to make it stop, how to make it go away, and I'd literally be thinking, like, let's say I thought, okay, who should I call to make this thing go away forever? And then this voice would go, you can't stop me. Now, knock on wood, he's been gone. He will appear briefly now and then. And we did have one tenant confess that he saw some shadows that he can't explain. You know, so...
He's still lingering there a little bit.
He's still lingering. There's other spirits that are in that house. We've done investigations there. And we still, every time we go there, like we're talking, you get pages and pages when you play it out of EVPs. But it's not like it was before. There's no, like... big bangs to try and scare you.
Right.
I did see the apparition of a man that's about 5'6" or 7, and he was dressed in clothing that I would say from the 1940s. He was just in a closet door that was open, and I'm painting a wall, and I turned, and he was right there. So there's still a lot going on in that house.
Do you think that he was somehow related in situationally to the shadow figure that was attacking you, or just another? Or do you think it was a separate?
Yeah. To give you an idea, so this spirit, his real name, we're convinced, and Dan, who is with us in our group there, Dan is a name guy. Like, he can go to a home, and he can say, who's Bob? And somebody will go, well, that was my uncle, but he passed away. And Dan can just pull names up like that. That's his gift, one of his gifts, right? And so he's picked up this guy's name, and it looks like these guys all lived in this home, and it's an old house, with this spirit who harassed me with his mother. And he was kind of like the ringleader. And he was, in the day, he was a big guy. You know, we're talking about a guy who's like 6+, 240, 250. Not as big as he projected himself when he scared the crap out of me. And these guys were kind of his little, like that cartoon, hey, Chester, and they're all running around. They were his kind of, he was their cronies, right? Yeah. And so they're still in there. And, people who've never experienced anything, if they hear this, they go, well, what's the big deal? But when you see something walk out of a wall and it's doing all the sounds that a real person would make, it's blocking the light, the floors are creaking, and I mean like heaving, right? That's intimidating as hell. And then literally just walk into a wall and gone.
Yeah, I can't imagine how crazy that would be. I mean, you mentioned earlier how it's like, you said it's like, it doesn't look real. But it's real in front of you.
Auditory.
Yeah, it's like your brain would have no way to process. It's so alien to anything you've ever seen in your life that it's like your brain's trying to make sense of what's going on in front of you. But it's just
that's probably the scariest part. It's pure terror because it's something you cannot place. It just doesn't belong in reality.
Yeah.
And like when you have people around you that you're in tune with, girlfriend, mom, dad, whatever. When you walk into a home and you know that something bad has happened or there's been a fight.
Right, you feel that energy, right? that residue.
Well, that's what flew off of this thing. I mean, like, it was just, and that was another intimidating part of it. It was just sheer rage, and you felt it. And it was like, and that's some people. Well, how do you know that? And I said, have you ever walked into the room and you knew that your mom and dad were fighting or something, and you could feel it before you even kind of realized that it happened? That's what would happen every time that thing would show up.
That's an interesting point.
Just that sheer rage.
Yeah, that leftover feeling. Because I think everybody experienced that at some point in their life where, there's a fight or something. You walk into that room and there's that vibe.
Yeah.
That's right. So he kind of resurrected himself again and was harassing me about a year and a bit ago. And so Dan said, look, I found someone, I want you to talk to her. And so I didn't say anything to this girl, and he didn't either. And she began to just pick up on stuff right off the bat. And so I knew she was legit, right? And her thing was that he was still residing in that space. So he's, some psychics call it, he's earthbound, right? He never moved on.
Right.
She said he didn't move on because of what he did when he was alive. He doesn't figure, like, he figures he's going to hell, right? And so there's always, they call it fear of judgment. There's all these different terms.
Yeah.
And you know what? I don't know how much of it's true or how much of it's not.
I don't either, but sometimes I wonder if I see that light. Like, do I? Shouldn't
I?
How good have I been?
Yeah, because he doesn't know at the end of the light, okay, are we taking the elevator up or down, right?
Yeah.
And so, okay, you know what? I think I'll just stay here rather than... And she said, and with no information, she said, well, like, you understand his rage, right? And I said, well, yeah, I do. And she said, like, he gave you warnings from literally the day you walked in that door.
Oh, wow. So
and
she
he was
picked up
fine.
on that.
It was a house full of girls, right? Mom and 2 teenage daughters.
Yeah.
And he was fine with that. He was cool with that. And then a guy walks in, well, I'm not cool with you being here. And then all of a sudden, move it forward a bit, and all of a sudden now you're ripping the place apart.
Right.
And she said, she said, like, when he would hit the walls and hit the floor, and I'm thinking, like, and she's pulling this out of the air because I never told her. And she said, and you were constantly disrespecting him. And it's true, I was.
Yeah.
So anybody who's got something going on, I think the biggest things are get help, obviously, especially if it's upsetting you. But don't run out of the room in fear. Do everything you can to try to control the fear, and don't disrespect it. Like, I think to say in a firm voice, you're not welcome in my home and I want you to leave, that's fine.
Right.
But don't walk in and go, okay, bitch, what did you do today?
Right.
Yeah.
Don't provoke it. Taunt it. Yeah.
Yeah, and especially if we're talking about a spirit that in the day, he probably would walk around looking for a fight, right?
Yeah.
And here I was giving it to him, but I didn't understand, and part of me probably didn't want to believe that there's any element of this could actually be real, right?
Right, and like you said, you're building yourself up, right. Confidence, and it's interesting though. You see people who are believers, like whether it's like on some paranormal show or whether it's on YouTube, but you see these guys who are like ghost hunters, but they go in and they're just dicks. They're just like big assholes. And they're like, "Come at me, bro!" Like to these ghosts, like show me proof.
Because they want something to happen,
right? Because it's part of the show.
It's
part of the show, which I get kind of to a degree. But I mean, you're kind of asking.
It's not the way you'd want to deal in a real situation.
In a real situation, when it's something that's uninvited, you don't want to be an asshole. But I get the confidence building. You want to be able to boost yourself up and walk into a situation where you're expecting that kind of terrifying situation.
And these guys do that kind of stuff. Like, for example, prior to me getting involved with the folks at Strange Happenings, they talked about one person to help investigate where this thing, they have, apparently these people have this massive king-size bed with a big, it's heavy to lift. And like Dan, like as I mentioned, my colleague there, he's a monster. He's huge, right?
Right.
He said for him to lift this thing, it's hard. The guy's in it, and it's like the bed was just getting thrown around a room.
Wow.
And so why would you want to show up somewhere, you don't know what's in the place, and then say, come at me?
Yeah.
Right. Because, right? Because so this thing turned out to be a poltergeist. There are things, and I'm careful to label things. Poltergeist is a name that we all agree that, okay, they call it, ultimately you break that down, that's noisy ghost, right?
Right.
So that's banging.
Is that German?
It's a German.
That's right.
It's a German. The Germans named it.
Noisy spirit. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, they didn't want the Canadians to name it because we'd go like Nosy Ghost Day, right? So they didn't want that.
So that's more fun, though. That's more fun. It's more melodic.
It's not as intimidating. Yeah,
that's
exactly.
Right.
Yeah. You know what? I would never, so if we're doing an investigation, we never would go in and do that. So we'll go in and we'll just say is anyone here want to talk to us?
Right, yeah.
And get a sense of what's there. Because, and I told this to Dan, he and I do a lot of this now. I said, we're going to meet something that's going to be heavy and ugly. Like, for example, the first time we helped move a poltergeist, and it was in Indiana. And Dan said to me, he said, we've never done anything like that far away. Everything's been local, where we could literally go to the house if we needed to, right? And I said, don't worry about it. We're going to be doing something in Australia. And sure enough, a week later, we get a request from Australia. So to give you an idea, when I got hurt in this home and I ended up needing an operation, right? And I ended up getting, an infection from it and got really, really sick where I was off work for a long time. It was almost like an awakening. And I had a shaman tell me that was like an awakening for you. And ever since that happened, I can walk into a home, and if there's something going on there, I can usually pick up on it real quick. I've had some times where it really freaks some people out, they'll contact us, and I'll say, okay, look, I need you to send me a picture from the hallway in your basement, and I need a picture from the furnace room. And they'll go, why? And I said, well, that's where all your activity is, right? And they're like, holy, how the F did you? And this happened through this house. And so one of the psychics told me, sometimes the good will put you into the dark for a while, and then you bring you out to help others that have been through what you've been through. So, like, if you reverse this and, like, 8 years ago, 9 years ago, somebody said, oh, you're going to be doing a paranormal podcast, or you're going to be on another paranormal podcast.
Right.
I'd be like, yeah, right, man. I'll give you and here I am.
Right.
And part of it, I can empathize with people because I know what it's like to be so scared of whatever's in your house, but also it's almost as scary to go and talk to somebody, because if you talk to the wrong person, they're going to make you feel like an idiot.
Right.
Like I tried to talk to my best buddy who I've known since I was 18 years old, and I was really distraught with this, and he goes, I don't believe in that shit. I'm like, okay, great.
Yeah, where do you turn then?
Yeah, and that reaffirms that, hey, you know what, you better keep your mouth shut.
Yeah, exactly.
Right. A really good night back then when it was really bad, it would be as if somebody, when they try to wake you up, but they did it really rough. That would be a good night for me.
Right.
And it felt like you couldn't talk to anybody. So people talk to us, whether it's through the pod or it's through my email or my ads that I put out, and they're not going to be judged. If they are a scammer, it's literally, I could figure it out in 2 minutes. It's amazing. You just know it, right?
Yeah.
That's what we do. We don't charge. We really believe that's bad karma. Right. People in need. It's like a fireman showed up at your house and say, well, you know what? I need
put this fire,
right? Turn the hose on, right? You know what I mean? Like, that's how we.
How much is in your checking?
That's very admirable.
Yeah. Well, it's that's one of the reasons I wanted to have you on was because, well, first of all, because your story was so compelling when I heard it, and then secondly, because you guys do have this sort of like hands-on service, sort of like a modern soft Ghostbusters kind of thing. And
you know what? Like, whatever you're going to tell us, and like we've had some people tell us some really freaky things. We've had people that have, like, having grays in their house, and it's like that's the one thing. Like, you're gonna have people that are gonna contact you with some stuff, but we never judge. Let them say their thing,
and that's important. Yeah,
that's right, exactly. And if we find out later on, or if our BS meter goes off, well, it just never hits the air. Right. But there are people that we've encountered that are like people that are being bit, and people that are being hit, and beds that are moving, and
serious who really need help.
That's right, exactly. And for anybody that's listening to your pod who's never experienced it, but you want to hear a scary story, just realize, like, and you guys know, just Google shadow people.
Yeah.
And you'll find it's all over the world, right? So either there's a whole mass hallucination going on, or there's something
exactly.
to this.
And I think a lot of people, I was kind of, when I was doing my research, I came across what I remembered actually was the first time I was introduced to the concept of shadow people. It was an old Art Bell Coast to Coast interview with someone
Thunderstrike
Thunderstrikes. He was like a Tangled Hair's elder, Thunderstrikes. But he that was the first time I'd ever heard that term before, and then I realized, like, even on that show, this was like before the internet was like huge, before it was like everybody was on all the time engaged with their mobile device, pre-smartphones. But even then, I remember listening to his show, and he was saying how, like, after he did the first episode about shadow people, he would have 2,000 emails that people around the country were seeing this, and they weren't coordinating. This wasn't like a meme, creepy pasta thing. It was something that people were experiencing around the world, and not everybody was comfortable talking about it because they think it's, either people are going to think they're crazy or they're hallucinating or, the typical.
That's right, exactly. And it's amazing. Like, and there's so many people that are experiencing things similar to mine. There's people that are out there right now dealing with stuff that makes mine look like a walk through the garden, right?
Right.
But they don't know what to do. They don't know who to talk to. And you also got to be careful, too, because there are people that'll come and say they'll help you. And I did make a phone call, and for thousands of dollars, this lady could make my world all roses.
Right.
And maybe she could, but maybe she couldn't, right? But it'd be a shame to go and spend that kind of money and go, and next thing you know, buddy walks out of the wall and you're scared shit. Right?
Yeah. And you're also out $2,000. Yeah.
So, so you know what? I would just say to anybody going through something, the first step would be a paranormal investigation group. And they're all over you Google them, they're all over the world. Everybody's got them. Every country's got them. And you want one that does it for free. And hopefully, check it out. But if they can come in and start getting EVPs, and you'll get evidence that supports what you're going through, and even to have like a meter in the middle of the room, and you're getting energy readings where there's no electrical source of energy, like that helps people realize you know what? Okay, you know what? There is something to what I'm seeing here. And from there, they probably have contacts, or then you can start talking to psychics who do this. And there are people, you know, we had a lady on our pod, that's all she does is the malevolent and demonic anywhere in the world. And she goes all over the world getting rid of some of the most ugly things. You know, one of the places she's working with right now, can you imagine these people wake up, and we're talking infant child is out of the crib and it's on the floor.
Wow.
Like this stuff is out there. So yeah, it's real. Hopefully you don't have to find it out the way I did, but it's real.
Yeah. You know, John, before we wrap up, I wanted to get your, you had an encounter with this figure, I think when you were still renovating that I heard, where it rushed you.
Oh, yeah.
Could you reiterate that for us, for our listeners? Because that was something I wanted to touch on about that specific experience.
Yeah, and I, because there's so much of the story, I forgot that.
Right.
When I was really slapped in the face and I knew that, okay, like there's more to the other side than I knew. So I was at the last room in the house, and I remember I walked in and I did my routine. Hey, bitch, guess what? I got half an hour of work, and I'm mouthing off to whatever, right?
Right.
And so all I got to do is lay a few tiles in the bathroom, and I'm done. And I remember I went up to that bathroom, and I walked into the master bedroom, which had a walk into it, and a garbage can starts swaying, and it's like a half-size garbage can, if you will. And then it starts really going. And I remember I'm standing there looking at this thing, and then the thing went apeshit. It's almost like you couldn't believe that it didn't fall over, right? And it's like something just had it. We're shaking it back and forth. And I remember I went over and I kicked it because I'm thinking, okay, it's an old house. Like, you know, do we got like a squirrel or a raccoon or something's got in this thing?
Right.
And then when it stopped, I got the handle from a broom and I poked around in there, and there's nothing in there, just garbage and whatever. And I remember I backed away from it because now I'm like, holy crap, right? Because before I'm getting like bangs, a shadow person, and tools missing. But now I've actually seen something like physically, like, and I mean, like when I say it didn't vibrate, I mean like it went 8 inches back and forth, just going crazy. And I remember I stepped away, and I'm thinking, I'm going to get out of this friggin' house. I got to walk past the garbage can to get down to the stairs and go. And I remember, I don't know why, but all of a sudden my attention was drawn to the bathroom. And I look into the bathroom, and I realize that there's a nail that's just kind of levitating through the air. And it's about, I'm going to say it's about 4 feet off the ground. And I don't know how far it traveled in the air, but now it's moving like in the bathroom where I'm supposed to go. And I'm focused, and I watched it move about 4 feet in the air, and this nail's about 2 inches long. And then all of a sudden it just drops. And I'm like, holy crap, man. Like, and now like I'm a little bit in shock. And then next thing you know, I'm standing there, and you can see this piece of paper is like something grabbed it and just whipped it. And it just flies across the bathroom. And then, you know, there's no windows open. There's no heat on. There's no air, you know. And so I'm standing there, and I'm like, okay, enough. I'm out of here, right? And next thing you know, the room, like it just turned to ice. I mean, it got so cold in that room. I remember looking at my arms, and the goosebumps were all out. I'm like, and I'm looking all around, like, how am I so cold, right? And then I could hear the sound of these heavy footsteps, and the bathroom's kind of long and narrow, and where the steps start, I can't see that side of the room, but you can hear boom, boom, and I'm expecting to see somebody come run through that door and come at me and rush me. And next thing you know, the steps get to the open doorway, and now it's coming into the middle of the bedroom, and I'm backing up, and it's running at me, but you can't see anybody. And I remember I actually put my hands out like I was going to block this invisible linebacker coming at me, whatever, you know. And the minute the footsteps got to me, all of a sudden I had the sensation of having cobwebs all over me. It was like it was in my hair, my face, it was on my arms. And at the same time, I got this electrical sensation. And it's like static all over your body, right? And I remember I'm rubbing my arms on my hair, trying to get this cobweb off. And looking back now, I believe that's where this thing attached to me to follow me to my home.
Right. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That's where I believe it happened, right? But so I'm there, and I can't get this stuff to stop. And the static, since it was actually getting uncomfortable. Like like I'm not going to say I was in pain, but it's now getting like uncomfortable, and I'm having a hard time breathing, and and so I head for the stairs, and I'm thinking like, okay, I'm out of here, right? I'm gone. And as I got to the top of the stairs, I got pushed, and I mean, it was my right shoulder both times that it pushed me, and it pushed me so hard that like it kind of turned my body sideways, right? And the only way I didn't fall down those stairs was that the stair was so narrow. I quickly got a hold of the banister, but I was going too fast and I fell off it. I hit the wall. I was able to kind of catch my footing again. And then halfway down, it pushed me again. But this time it pushed me so hard that I wiped out of the heap on the bottom of the stairs. And then I ran out of the house. And up until recently, I'd never been in that house alone again. I wouldn't go in there alone. Yeah, so that was when this thing showed me what it can do. I'm not going to say it would have killed me if I'd have fallen down the stairs, but it sure would have banged me up bad because it's like, I think it's like 16 stairs to the bottom, right?
Yeah.
All hardwood stairs.
That's scary.
Yeah, and that was the thing that really kind of slapped me in the face that, okay, I know that it's one thing, the bangs and the bumps, they seem like nothing now, although they did scare you. But that, I still to this day believe that when it rushed me, and that's where it was able to kind of attach to me. And when I came home, and that's how it made it so easy to find me and just come walking out of my walls and start tormenting the hell out of me.
Yeah, it's interesting because that static feeling, that
ectoplasmic net.
Well, it's interesting because
I've heard that before.
You hear a lot about, we talked about it earlier on the episode, when I had an out-of-body experience, and I won't go into all that detail right now, but it was not too far away from my shadow person experience. And John, if you listen back to our episode, you'll hear that story, but it was that when I was leaving my body, it was that static sensation, almost like there's some sort of bridge on that level that's like something to do with that electrical sensation. Yeah, where it's like, so that it makes total sense to me when you say like that's when you thought it attached to you.
Speaking of electrical, I just want to make a quick interjection here. But as we were listening to the last part of your story,
right after I asked you about to reiterate that specific experience,
we've been telling the story about the nail.
Yeah, as soon as you started talking about that,
we've been having this strange. I've never heard this ever in a recording we've done before, and I don't know if you're hearing it all on your end.
Probably not.
Probably not, but you'll hear the recording.
I heard some strange sounds.
Yeah, it almost sounds like an electrical dolphin ghost.
Yeah, or like a door open, like a digital door opening and closing.
Never
slowly.
heard that before.
Never.
You know what? When I first heard it, it almost sounded like somebody trying to let some gas out real carefully.
Exactly.
Right. That was earlier, which I hope you didn't
get. Off the air. Like, did you guys? Did I talk too long? Like,
we're all doing it really slowly.
I heard it.
So you did hear it too. Okay, yeah.
That was weird.
I did hear it. Yeah, it's like, and you're right. That's an excellent description. It was almost like a really subdued, like a dolphinish type sound.
Yeah.
Right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It sounds like something's trying to penetrate the circuits, is what it sounds
right,
like.
Yeah.
That's right. And that's like this spirit. He still lurks around.
Right.
And you guys may have like drank a bit of the Kool-Aid now, and you may find that you'll have some crazy things happen.
Well, thank you.
Thanks a lot, John.
And here's the other thing too. Every time that we work on a case, whatever we're working on, the actual thing will show up in my home. And I'm used to it now. And the people will say, well, I'm seeing this giant guy in a robe. And the next thing you know, it shows up in my home.
Wow.
And we had a lady on who talked about how she does readings. And it's almost like they go through your mind, and this thing will literally do everything that in the past has scared the crap out of me, trying to scare the crap out of me because it wants you to go away. Hey, I got my thing going on here. I got somebody I'm getting this energy off of, right? And just bugger off. And I've had them come into my home and make my room cold, like ice cold. That scared the crap out of me when this happened before. Now I'm like, I'm not going to sit there and go, oh, I'm like, hey, look at me, But I mean, I'm okay with it, right?
Right. You expect it.
I'm not screaming like a little girl running into the room like I used to. And that stuff happens all the time. All the time. The people will talk about what's going on, and all of a sudden it'll happen to me and to Dan, who helps me with these, works with me 50-50. And it'll happen every time.
John,
they will show up.
John, do you sorry to interrupt you. Do you ever worry? Do you ever worry about your safety? Do you ever think like, if this gets to a point where, so much interaction with these things, whatever they are, do you ever fear for your life?
Like you'd be seriously vulnerable?
So to give you an idea, I was having some problems at night. It seems like they would come to me at night. That's when you're at most vulnerable, right? And I had a psychic who was, in my opinion, based on the things she's told me, that she's pretty powerful. And she recommended, so I have what call a selenite lamp, and that's supposed to go off an energy and a vibration. And I have to admit, the activity in my bedroom at night has gone down to almost zero.
That's good.
So, and then I work on protection routines where you kind of envision white light. If I feel like things are going on, I will burn sage or burn a white candle. A lot of it is I swear to God, it's intention. If you believe something will help you, it seems to help you.
That's what I keep hearing.
Do you believe in God or have a religion or anything like that? Do you use prayer or anything like that ever?
No, but I'm not overly religious. In my family background, religion divided our family, so it's kind of like an area that I'm not. But I have had something ugly going on here one time, and someone had sent me the Archangel Michael prayer, and I read it, and it stopped.
Interesting. Yeah.
So, and I have gone to homes where I've helped. One of the people that we helped was on the Paranormal Survivor.
Oh, that's a great show. I remember that show.
Yeah. So, one of our clients was on there, and I did the clearing and I did sage burning. And the people who ran the show, they couldn't believe that I wasn't doing religious things. And I just kept talking about, as I burnt the sage, that we only accept positive energy. Right. And negative is banished, right? And a lot of things, it's about intention. Yeah. Like, I swear to God, I think if you had a Batman figurine and you really believe this thing could protect you, like Dan says, hold it up in the power of Batman, right?
Right.
If you believe something that gives you strength and comfort, that will help you, I guarantee it.
Right. Well, it's interesting. It seems like such a confusing world when it comes to the protection and spiritual. Because I work with some people that we have had conversations and they don't like to hear the supernatural side because it kind of freaks them out. And then, but the one thing they do say is well, I'm safe because I'm a Christian, so nothing will happen to me. And I think well, that's a great thought. And maybe if you believe it, it won't. But at the same time, you some of the most well-known possession cases are people who are fundamentalist Catholics, and they prayed until they died of their exorcism. So it's really complicated, I think.
Yeah, I think it's overweighted.
Yeah.
One of the most, and it's still ongoing, one of the most intimidating things we've ever been involved in. Very, very devout Catholic.
Yeah, I don't know if that's the best. I feel like just because you say you're religious too doesn't necessarily mean that you're really connected.
Or that you're confident in.
Yeah, exactly. If you're just saying words and you don't.
You could be a very scared, non-confident individual and believe yourself to be a Christian, but if you don't have that fortitude,
it's almost like believing in yourself in a way.
Right.
Like
you're
like you
believing
said,
Batman,
power deeper. Yeah, exactly.
It's you have that intention and confidence in that.
Yeah. That's right. And so here she is. She's a devout Catholic and all this kind of stuff. But she's scared shitless. Yeah. So guess what? There's the energy, right?
Yeah, exactly. It doesn't matter. Yeah, I mean, if you're afraid, you don't believe that God would help you anyways. If you're that terrified.
Deep down,
bingo,
you don't.
Bingo. And that's right. Exactly.
Yeah, it's interesting.
Yeah. So, for the biggest thing in people, and go get help, get the free help to start. If you think you have to pay, I'd want to see a track record. But paranormal investigators can confirm that you're not crazy, right? But don't feed it. That's what I keep saying. Don't feed it. You got to control your fear. If you walk into a room and something's going on, don't run.
Right.
Turn, walk out slowly, as much as it scares the crap out of you. But every time that we've worked with people and we see their confidence go up and they don't show the fear, activity begins to go down.
Yeah.
We have done all kinds of things going to homes and helping people, and the fear is still through the roof. It makes it really hard, if not impossible, for us to really be of any significant help to these people.
Yeah. So you're almost like a therapist at the same time that you're...
Well, part of it is, and building people's confidence up. And, but it's like if you keep putting the buffet out, well, then they're going to keep coming to feed at it.
Right.
And that's the thing. And you can have all that different beliefs and whatever your religious background is and what have you. But if you're terrified and you're giving this thing what it wants... Because let's face it, they don't sit there and take your chair and slam it on a wall because they want to say hi. They want to scare you, right? And they need the reaction. And as stupid as it sounds, it's like the more they get that, the more they do. And it's like it's your energy that you give off from that gives them more power to carry on and do what they're doing.
Yeah, it makes total sense. It's like a parasite.
Low-hanging fruit, the more scared you are.
And there are some that are just like parasites. You're right. That's what they're looking for, right? So... Yeah, exactly. And so get help. The one thing that, and you guys talked about what I do to protect myself. The other thing that I do, I went and saw a shaman and had a shamanic extraction where they just kind of get your chakras in line and all that stuff, right?
Right.
And I was kind of like on the fence on that stuff. That sounds kind of, I'm thinking like I'd probably be like have some bunch of Jack Daniels, and then I'd be more in the mindset to go do this, right? Because it's still,
this is the man who has been haunted by.
Yeah, but you're still in your head going, like, okay, come on, right?
Exactly.
Right, exactly.
I got to tell you, when I went, and she did all these things, and she found, and I got to tell you, like I've had this when all this stuff happened, I had a lot of problems on my right side, and she told me where she found stuff. I had a problem one time where I woke up choking. And I swear it was that spirit. And she said, like, I was working on your chakra in your throat, and like a mouse come out, and that's considered a negative sign because disease and all that kind of stuff. She pulled it. She claimed it was a dagger. She said there was a clamp. Forget all the other stuff. What I could tell you was when I was there having that done, I actually felt like I was floating. It was the most bizarre sensation. Wow. And when I left there, I felt like $1 million.
Yeah.
I want to go.
And so that's now part of my routine now because I said to my friends, right? We're going into these homes, and I know one day we're going to encounter something that we're going to be like, okay, we can't help you, but we're going to help you find somebody who can.
Right.
You have to have some kind of a regime in place to help protect yourself,
You're
right?
Like cleaning your inside.
Yeah,
aura,
that's right.
You know?
That's right.
It's a spiritual hike. It's interesting because you hear about like you've got your earthly body, right, and then there's this sort of shadow of yourself on this astral plane. And I've heard these stories before, whether it's mediums or shamans, but they do talk about like on this other plane, like these things are being done to your astral presence that you don't see. So when you were talking about like the mouse and the dagger, like it just reminds you of like that your shadow self that's connected to you.
Right.
Like these things are being done to you on another plane, and you can't see it.
That's right.
But you're getting the effects from it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And the other thing too, people who are dealing with paranormal, and if you talk to them, you wouldn't believe how much interference you get. Where you'll think about doing something that's a positive step in resolving your situation, and then you'll get all this stuff in your head. Oh, well, that's stupid. That's crazy. Part of that may be you. But also part of that is what's going on because they don't want you to get resolution help.
Yeah.
You know, and you know what? It's very possible that part of the technical problems you guys had the other day was because somebody's going to hear this. You're going to go, you know what? I'm going to go get some help.
Right. Yeah.
And they don't want the message to get out.
Yeah.
So like if you keep getting these nagging doubts, and I've talked to, and I have a lady that I'm working with right now, and I've told her this negative entity putting this in your head, you know, like can you imagine she's having a child who's being affected by this, but she keeps thinking, well, I won't do that because that's crazy.
Right, exactly.
Well, you know what? If your child is screaming and swears he's being bitten, there's nothing that's off the table, right?
Right, yeah.
But these things will put it in your head, and they work on you, and especially if they attach to you, you know, you've got to take the steps because they're going to make sure you stay in this shitty place because that's
so insidious.
That's right, exactly, right. So it's like a pig in mud. He doesn't want to get out of it, and that's what these things are doing. So people need to be, you know, implanted thoughts that aren't your own.
I think everyone's experienced that on some level, even
just
if they
might not be
don't know
aware.
it.
Yeah,
I mean, I think anytime you're in a dark place and you just feel like overwhelmed by that negative energy,
and you can't get out of that pattern.
I've definitely been in phases of my life where things aren't working, and you just feel like this onslaught of negative, and it's like, where is this coming from?
Right, you
evil,
can't get out of
dark
it.
Thoughts that just
and that makes you open up to the shitty side, right?
Right, exactly.
When you're in that bad place, that makes it easier. And once you get into that bad place, they'll do everything they can to keep you in that bad place.
Parasites.
You know, like when this was going on, I drank too much.
Yep.
Which was not in the best. But
Spirits.
like, you know, I'd literally, I would go to bed thinking, okay, if I go to bed half in the bag, no matter what happens, I'm not going to wake up. And you start coming up with all these stupid things, but that's part of these implanted thoughts.
Right.
Because they want you in that place, right?
Yeah.
You know, keep the buffet going, keep feeding me all this stuff, right? That's what they want. So, yeah, it's a crazy, I don't know even what way to call it. It's a crazy side to the world or our existence.
Well, it's just
but it's there.
It's so strange that we live in this world that, you know, especially in the Western part of the world, that it's just not even addressed at all. You know, all this stuff. And, you know, even in Hollywood, we talk about that a lot. It just seems like there's just dark forces at play that is just completely unacknowledged in our modern world. We've completely forgot about all this. And I think it is directly related to a lot of the problems in the world.
Yeah, that's right.
Just focusing on the material.
And they want you to focus on the material.
And I've been in a home that we're working on, and you can feel the energy, the spirit's getting upset. And, you know, we're saying you have to leave, you're not welcome here, what have you. And, like, all of a sudden, this big box in the corner of the room just gets smoked like somebody soccer kicked it, right? Like, I've seen enough to know that you know what, if you can't label it, if you can't like explain it, but I know it's there.
Right, it's real.
Right, it's not in a textbook, it's not a course that we can take, right? But it's there and it's real, and it does. You know what? I'm going to tell you right now that like probably my grandparents have popped in and all that. Like, I believe that when we're done here, there's another dimension or existence that we're going to be in, but there are people that when they pass on, that they were in a shitty place and they're going to be in a shitty place in the afterlife.
Yeah, they just
and
carry
they're
that
wreak
energy
havoc
through.
Mm-hmm. That's right. They wreak havoc in their living lives and they carry it on. And then there's also things out there that I don't even believe were ever human, and they're just like some ugly stuff that like I haven't encountered it yet. Well, maybe we'll see. There's one place we're working on. We're suspicious here, and there's some things out there that you can't explain. Things that are gonna you're gonna wake up and you're gonna be scratched or bitten and all these different crazy things that go on. But it's out there. It is. People. Hopefully, you never encounter it in your life. But if you do, you don't do what I did. Don't walk around for 2 years, kind of, in denial and afraid to talk. And if you can't talk to your spouse, you better
that just makes it worse.
Call a group. Call a paranormal group. Talk to them.
Yeah.
And then go from there. That's right. And for my better half, when they did come back and they played all these EVPs we got, for her, if she was thinking, okay, I'm going to find a way to bail on this guy because he's nuts, she kind of, like afterwards, she said, look, and she did, and it was funny, it was really dumb. She kind of goes, I'm so sorry. She had nothing to be sorry for. But I said, like, no, don't worry about that. But like, then she knew right away. And it was all through the help of a free paranormal group that came in and did an investigation for like 8 hours.
Got you the confirmation you're looking for.
That's right, exactly. So unfortunately, it's out there. But you know what? There's things you can do to make it stop. You're not in a permanent existence unless you do nothing.
Don't feed them.
Don't feed it. That's right. Don't feed your spirits and ghouls and malevolent entities. Yeah. It's like when you feed a stray cat, they hang around, right? Don't feed them.
That's a great T-shirt. Starve your ghouls.
I like it. Go, yeah.
Next Belief Hole shirt.
Exactly.
That's great. I like it. That's great.
Awesome.
Well, John, you said it first, so you got it.
Yeah. All right. Well,
We'll
John,
share the rights.
John, thank you so much for coming on.
Yeah, thanks, John.
You're actually our first guest we've had on the podcast, and definitely the best we've had so far. So
absolutely.
Probably for
well, hey, thanks for the invitation.
Absolutely.
And I've been listening to your pod, and I'm enjoying it, and I'll keep it. I subscribe, so I'm one of your subscribers. And we'll give you guys a shout-out tomorrow when we record ours.
Fantastic.
And, we'll keep in touch. And
absolutely. We'll do this again.
What's going on.
You want to give the name of your show one more time?
Yeah.
Sure. Phantom Faction Podcast. And we're on, just like you guys, CastBox, iTunes, Google Play, all the...
Right. It's a great show, too. I'm 3 episodes in, and it's great. It's you guys have great
chemistry.
Yeah, great
and
chemistry.
And the knowledge.
Well,
absolutely.
Well, that's what I said to you guys. The banter reminds me of listening to you guys. And it's, you make it light where you can, right? So,
right.
Ours is definitely banter-based.
We'll give our readers or our listeners will get a shout-out for you guys tomorrow. And... you know what? Like there's lots of room for all of us, so let's just try to help some people and
that's what it's about.
Have a little fun on the way, right?
Absolutely, John.
For sure.
Absolutely. Well, John, thank you so much, and we'll be in touch. I'd love to talk to you again, and maybe the other guys on your show sometime.
Awesome. Thanks, guys. Take care, and we'll be in touch.
All right, John.
too, John.
Good talking to you. See you later.
Okay, bye-bye.
Bye.
That was a really good interview for our first interview.
Really
it
good.
was, yeah.
John's a great guy. John from Phantom Faction.
Yeah, he's definitely a passionate person to talk to about this. For sure.
He knows this. He knows his stuff. He's had experiences.
Yeah, he's had quite a bit of in-depth. Our stories don't really compare as far as intensity and length
and validity.
We're armchair spiritualists.
Yeah, actually, I'm okay with the level of
involvement we actually have firsthand.
I'm not really interested in developing shadow friends at this point.
Right, or experiencing.
No, good. I mean, more power to John and his group for like helping people. I wish I had that the spiritual cojones.
It's really interesting. I didn't hear him talk about, but I don't know if I missed it. Did he talk about at all, like why he thinks it started? Or like if it seemed like it had to do with when he met his wife.
Well, I think it was more about the renovation. Like he said,
but it was before that.
Yeah, it was when he moved
the place.
It was when they moved into that house. I think that's when things started.
Yeah, but it was. He said that the weird thing is though no one else experienced this stuff.
Oh right, like it was kind of directed at him.
Yeah, it was maybe.
Oh, because it was her and two younger girls, and then he came in.
Yeah,
it was like
I
it's
think
another
you might
guy.
have been out of the room for that. Yeah,
but we didn't really ask him about that. I was just curious.
I think he said,
and I said it felt like the way it was. It may have had something to do with him meeting this this woman. It was like he met the love of his life, and then all this phenomena started to happen.
Yeah, well, it's interesting.
Maybe that was protective.
Yeah, well, it sounded like he said that from what they gathered was that this spirit that was there that was giving him all the physical attention was someone who had died in the house who lived with his mom. So him in a female figure, protective of his mother, I'm imagining, and then so it's okay when his future better half is there, but once he moves in, then there's just something that needs to be protected. Yeah.
So, but that was a completely different entity than the shadow.
Oh, was it?
Figure. Well, wasn't it?
Well, we'll have to have John on again.
I thought
I feel like he could tell us another 100 stories.
Yeah, because he did got a lot of stories.
He was making at one point we asked him to distinguish between what he thought was a previously disembodied spirit versus like a completely other entity that's just a demon, demonic force, whatever you want to call it.
Beelzebub.
So
cool.
Well, yeah,
but that was great. We definitely should have him on again sometime.
Yeah, I'd love to have, and I'd love to have anybody out there who's listening that has a good story. Call into our speak pipe or write us a tale, a true tale,
a tale.
like Charisse had done.
Spin us a yarn.
Thank you, Charisse, by the way, for sending in your story.
Oh yeah, Charisse, that was a wonderful, freaky story.
So if you guys feel like helping us along, I know it's still pretty early on in the show, but we need some gear. If you feel like supporting it, you feel like this gives you some joy, and you want to help us out,
scares.
We're going to put a donate button on the website, which is beliefhole.com.
Right.
And we also have a Patreon.
Just go to Patreon and
patreon.com and search Belief Hole.
Yeah, it'll come up. There's 2 tiers in there right now.
We're going to start adding more stuff to the people that become Patreon.
Yeah, you're going to get an extra episode a month starting off with the second tier, $3
When does that start?
month.
When do we start giving the extra?
Yeah, I don't think we've discussed that fully.
Chris is throwing out episodes.
He's recording full interviews like this, because this will be way shorter, and we could make like a longer. I mean, we'll do some stuff
down the road. And if you have any ideas, you got listeners out there, maybe extras that you might want.
What do you want from
really
us?
Basically, we're not asking anyone to throw any money our way who can't afford it. It's really, but it would help us get a regular output of episodes, So that being said, we are going to be doing, from here on out as our goal, and I think we're achieving it for the first time this week, podcasts every other Wednesday.
Yeah, I think we're going to be for sure sticking to a more serious. I think we've got it down now.
Yeah.
So that it's not too intense. And,
I was going to get an apartment, but I decided to continue to live in my motorhome so that we can afford to spend time.
That's a generous
focusing
term.
on
Where are you motoring?
Motoring.
Well, you mean your
3 inches?
It runs,
very still home.
It runs. I just choose not to run it.
That's true. It is a motorhome. It just doesn't move.
I got a great spot in the woods. I don't need to drive it anywhere.
I hope you get.
Makes it sound like you drove off the road somewhere and parked it.
It's legal.
It's legal.
Let's put it that way.
He has electricity. Sometimes.
I do have electricity now.
And
it's no longer shocking me when I touch the door handle.
Now after talking to John.
Let's not talk about that. I'm in the woods. I don't want to have shadow people knocking on my windows.
Chris.
Nanny.
Nanny.
Demonic Fozzie.
All right. Thanks
listeners.
for joining us.
Yes.
Yes, we had a great time with you today.
Thanks to everybody who's tuned in, listen to this episode.
Check out Phantom Faction podcast anywhere you find your podcasts. And the website will have their contact info in the show notes. And thank you so much. Yeah, stay tuned for our next episode where we might be digging a little deeper into the source of alternate
life.
Oh, what does that mean? That's so vague.
I wasn't
saying
what I was saying.
That wasn't even what I meant.
I wanted to get deeper into maybe the source of these darker forces.
Which about the
Archons? Yes, John, thank you.
Saturn?
The Saturn death cult.
Okay, that sounds
As
interesting.
I lovingly would like to refer to it.
I'll tune in.
We're swimming in the muck.
We're mucking it up because, you got to shine a light in the dark in order to exercise the demons.
I'm not afraid. I'm not afraid of those ghosts.
I am afraid.
All right, we gotta go.
Well, like the Ghostbusters say, call in, leave us your stories because
as the Ghostbusters
this is what they say. I was going to say what the Ghostbusters say. Do you remember what they do in their commercial
statement.
At the end? They go, call us, and then they go, because we'll believe you in unison. So we should probably do it in unison.
1, 2, 3.
Because we'll believe you
in the belief hole.
Oh, wow.
We did that. That was spontaneous.
Look at that. That's good. All right.
All right. Goodbye.
Spirit's good.
Good night.
Bye.